A conference with legal counsel, claim number 553267, 10000522727 versus Novato Unified School District. Denied the claim. Item C3, with respect of every business of item to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, conference with legal counsel, pending litigation, Coalition to Save the Lights, Coalition to Save San Marin versus Novato Unified School District, Marin County Superior Court, case number 1702295, gave direction.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to approving our agenda. And the agenda stands as it is. There's no changes. We do have a fairly lengthy agenda, so I just asked the trustees if you could keep your comments, questions. You know, we want you to obviously express your opinions and thoughts and ask questions, but if you've already heard it asked, please don't ask it again. And so that we can stay within our time constraints and just be respectful of that and have relevant questions, please. So, all right.
I'd like to move on approving tonight's agenda.
I have a question about tonight's agenda.
Yes,
a process
Trustee
question,
Nell.
and that's in reference to D, E, and F of our discussion action.
Okay.
Are we? I'm a little concerned about approving things in order like this. Because if something comes up in F that I didn't know about until after we've already approved D, I'm just wondering, is it possible to take action on all three of those items after we've reviewed all three items? Or
Yeah, we can make that. I know it did cross my mind vaguely when I looked at that, but then I realized, oh, there are three really separate projects. But I see where you're coming from. We could have them all three presented at the same time, and then take questions and everything, and then we'll take each one individually.
a single action, would that?
I think we should do it individually.
Individually, but at the
we'll
end.
hear everything at one
Hear
time.
everything.
How about that?
I would think that might be a good idea.
Yeah, thank you for suggesting that. Okay, so
with that, I'll
You'll
second
second?
the
Okay.
approval of the agenda.
So we have a first by Trustee Cooper, a second by Trustee Nell. All in favor to approve the agenda? 7-0, thank you. And if anybody would like to make a comment on anything on the agenda or not on the agenda, you may do so. And I will, we just need you to fill out a blue card, which is over there on that cart right there. Bring it up to Sally, and then we'll plug you in where you need to speak to the item. And you have 3 minutes to speak on any item on the agenda or not on the agenda. So the consent, does anybody, trustee, have anything to pull from consent?
I'm prepared to move we adopt the consent agenda as
Okay.
written.
We have a first by Trustee Nell to approve the consent, and a second by Trustee Millerick. All in favor to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, 7-0. All right, now the best part is you guys, our students. Rancho is here this evening, and Angela, I see you right there. Ms. Chrysler will come up and get us going. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. We're excited to share with you this evening our group of our restorative justice facilitators. It's a group of 5th graders, and this is just some of them that were able to be here tonight. And we also have Phoebe Smith, who we partner with through the YMCA. Restorative justice came to us about 3 years ago when I started at Rancho. I was approached by Evie, and she said, hey, we've got this program. What do you think? And I don't ever really say no to anything, which is a false sometimes. This ended up being a huge win-win for us, and we started restorative justice circles and community building circles in our classrooms. And interestingly enough, this group of 5th graders were 3rd graders when I first started at Rancho. So they were just budding leaders when I started there. And to see them grow into the leaders that they are, I told Phoebe I'm going to cry tonight, I promise. It's just amazing to see. And so we're going to give you an inside glimpse into what a restorative circle looks like at the elementary level. With the P3 work that we've been doing, we've been really looking at our discipline and looking at our numbers of referrals and how do we be proactive and reactive in this crazy world that we're dealing with in the business of building people, because they don't come to us perfect. And so we've kept them very busy working to resolve some of the conflicts that we have on our campus. So you're going to get an insider's view of a situation that came to us earlier this year. We have 2 board members that we've asked to participate in this interactive activity. And so what we're going to do is we're going to sort of go through the process, and hopefully there'll be some ad-libbing, so you'll see some authentic questioning and processes that we go through. And then afterwards there will be opportunity for you to ask any questions that you might have. All right, you guys ready? Yeah. Okay.
Miss Smith is bringing around. Miss, okay.
Keep it fair. Keep it fair.
Okay. Greg put a lot of time and love into painting a rock to contribute to the school-wide Kindness Rock Garden. Greg put the initials of his grandmother who passed away on the rock. James, Greg, and a few other friends were playing around the garden one day. James picked it up and announced to his friends that he was going to throw the rock over the fence. Greg began to cry because it was his rock that got thrown. Miss Chrysler referred the boys to talk out the problem in a restorative justice circle.
Sure. Well, we were all in the garden, and Greg was bragging about his little rock that he made for his grandmother. And um, then he made fun of me, and I didn't like that, so I fired his rock over the fence. Yeah, me and Jim were just playing, and I don't know what happened, but then I was telling him about the rock that I made for my grandmother, and my grandmother's really important to me, and she died recently, and I did this for her. He picked it up and then just threw it out in the yard. It really made me mad, and took everything I had to not do something else.
James, how do you think this made Greg feel?
Well, I suppose. Well, I suppose since he was close to his grandmother, that made him feel pretty bad that he did that rock for her.
James, do you think your actions would lead to a consequence? Did you think you were doing something wrong?
So obviously in the circle, it doesn't always go as planned. And sometimes we get some bizarre answers and responses, and the kids, they work, sometimes we don't have circles for the week. They work with Phoebe on, coming up with the facilitation process and what kind of questions that they can ask to dig a little bit deeper into what the motivations are. And when I started at Rancho, there was, and sort of in education, there's always this like, if A, then B. And like, there should always be this consequence that comes with the action. And what we found is if we just dig a little bit deeper and find out why what's happening is happening, then we can kind of cater the support plan to really remedy and not just triage, and really address the deeper issue. We might have the same kids come through a restorative circle, but they're coming through with different reasons. Some circles last weeks because we're working on something that takes a little bit longer. But I'm really impressed with the questioning and the confidentiality that these students have. Sometimes there's things that just come right to me, and they just bypass restorative justice altogether. But if there's something worth working on between the two people, and there's been harm that's been done to our community, and that we can give back and really give that lesson, most often the people that we're involved, that we're working with, really understand the value of the circle, and come out better people because of it. And so I'm really proud of our leaders, and I'm always sad to see them go, but there's always a group right behind them. It's based on teacher recommendation, and they get to go to the middle school this spring. So they'll go to Sinaloa or San Jose and observe peer court there. And we have 6th graders who were 5th graders last year who have been grandfathered into that process, and so they're well trained, and we're just excited to see that continue at the elementary school on through middle school. Do you guys have any questions?
Questions? Trustee Nell.
So I have sort of a process question after the court. Is it called a court?
We call it a restorative circle.
Sort of circle. I think it's great that you trust the kids to act as peers and to work together and come up with a solution. But in the case of in this particular example, there was the recommendation that a note be written. So are they fairly clear that their role ends at that decision, and then is that at some point is that where an adult steps in, and who handles the enforcement of that note or timeout or whatever sentence? Is that the right term? I mean, do they no?
We call it a plan.
A plan.
And,
okay. Thanks for just help me understand. So how do we know that the planning is being implemented?
It depends. So there have been times where we had a situation where we had 2 kids that were imitating a yard supervisor's accent, and we brought them to the circle, and the reaction from these kids, I think, was almost settlement enough, because they were shocked that somebody would behave that way towards an adult on campus. And they came up with a plan where they would mentor, and we switched playgrounds, and they had to shadow yard supervisors, and they were in charge of implementing the execution of that. Sometimes Phoebe will pull a group. It might be at a recess, and these are 5th graders, so they have a different recess than the littles. So if it's a 2nd grade or a 1st grade issue, then an adult might work with them. But really the idea is to help them push through the plan that they've come through and really support the kids, because it means more to the kids that have come to the circle if their peers are the ones that are helping support them through that process. But sometimes it's an adult tag team situation. It really depends on the situation.
Trustee Aguila.
Thank you. I think it's wonderful how the teachers trust the students, but I also think it's wonderful how the students are able to open up and trust and speak what they need to say. Mm-hmm. I think it's very important, and that I really admire and I appreciate that you guys understand confidentiality, because that's so important. It's a skill that you will need from now until the rest of your life. And so with knowing the difference between secret and confidentiality, and when you understand that and you practice confidentiality, that's you guys are already ahead of the game. And wanted to know that I think I've been to your school where you guys have talked with you guys have participated in the Do Good, Be Kind. So there's I think everything ties together. And with Dr. Kavi's practices that you also practice. I think all that gets put together, and I think you guys are really moving forward. I think it's great. Thank you.
And I just want to put a little plug in for Phoebe. I said if everybody should have a Phoebe. She is amazing. And her role, especially at the elementary level when it's just me as the administrator and I'm doing discipline, instructional leadership, facilitation, guidance, everything, having her on campus really it's a partnership with us because I'm the one communicating who the kids are, what are their needs, what's their background, giving her the history so that when she goes cold into a situation, she's got that information. She knows these guys inside and out, and she really knows their strengths and how to pull out of them what they need to be able and who they need to show up to be for these kids. And she is fantastic communicator, and you know, she communicates with the teachers, and just having that person in that role has been pivotal in really making sure that this process truly stays with the fidelity that it needs to make it a true program and see the effectiveness of it. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much, students. Let's get a photo of everybody. If you guys could come up here, we'll get a photo. Yeah, thank you. Really good job.
I think Greg and I should have been in there.
Yeah. Sounds like James needs to make a rock.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Thanks. Really good job.
Is it that scripted? They were scripted. That's
Yeah,
not good.
I don't
think
think
that's scripted.
All right, let's move on to our announcements. We have one student board member, Manuela's here. Hi, Manuela. Thanks for being here. Can you, use your microphone, please? Thanks.
Okay, well, currently at Marin Oaks, there's going to be the meditation room unveiling on Thursday at 10:30 to 11:45. I'm so excited for that. I'm really wondering what the look's going to be. And currently, all seniors are doing their PBLs, project-based learning. I chose my Bridges. If you guys remember, Bridges is a program to help juniors and seniors to their way on college. Like, they help us with resumes. They bring in certain people with careers, and they talk about what they do at job, all the good and the bad, and how they went there, the steps that they took. And at the Student Advocacy Council, we're going to be interviewing other Marin Oaks students about why they're there and why they are at Marin Oaks, so we can help other students at Novato High and San Marin to see how they're at and if they need help, so that they don't end up at Marin Oaks, and see what we can do to help them there at their high school. And honor roll assembly for third quarter is this Friday, and I'm excited. I'm on it. So I did good. Yeah, thank you. Yep, that's all.
Thank you. Trustee Millerick, any announcements?
No announcements today. Thank you very
Thanks. Trustee Nell.
I attended the school fuel board meeting, and we're ramping up for the tour of Novato bike event on May 5th. So hopefully all of you have gone online and are sponsoring someone or a school, or you can sponsor the district at the district level. And I hope to see everybody out there on Saturday. And I don't know if anybody's riding. I'm not riding, but you're right. Good, great, go Greg. So it's a great event, and it's another full year of hard work to put it together, but the day is near. So look forward to seeing everyone there.
Trustee Aguila?
Yes, I attended the PK class, and there were 10 parents, which I also attended their graduation a week later, and this took place in Nevada High, and just so important to have parents involved in and have them understand how the system works, and so that they can help their children. So that was a great experience, and to see them graduate. And I also attended open house, San Marin, and impressed, very, very impressed with, did you know that they made an airplane?
Yeah.
And they're in the process of making an airplane, and the airplane's actually going to be used as an airplane. So it is just amazing. And the most amazing thing about it was that the people working in it, the students are in charge, and the adults are all volunteers. It just can't get better than that. So a win-win situation for everybody. And the Golden Bell, that is, I attended the meeting, and that's coming up, the celebration in May. So celebrating the achievement of teachers and trustee of the year and classifieds, and, you know, very, very well-deserved ceremony.
Thank you. Trustee Mack?
No real announcements other than the fact that, yes, I'll be riding in the school fuel routes. If anybody wants to sponsor me, I'm behind a microphone. I can ask for that now. But no other announcements. Thank you.
Trustee Cooper?
I have no announcements. Thank you.
Trustee Scott?
No announcements.
I have a few. I did some of my committees that I was on. North Marin Council meeting I attended, Marin Promise meeting I attended, and I came here for the LCAP meeting, which was open to the community. We had more people than last year, but still kind of lightly attended. But it was a good group of people to get feedback on our LCAP supplemental funding. And I was able to go to the Rancho open house, and I went to the MSA dance performance that the dance program puts on every year. That was this last weekend. And one thing I did today, and we were all asked, but I was able to go, was to go on the sailing trip. I was out on the bay today at 9 o'clock.
Did you take any pictures?
Yeah, I took some
I'd
pictures.
love for you
Yeah,
to send them. I'd like to
it
see
was a little cool. The sun didn't come out till about 11:15 or so. You go out from Sausalito, out under the Golden Gate Bridge, come back, and it's 3 hours. You're back by noon, and the kids, it's all the juniors and seniors that are in marine biology at San Marin. The teacher, Melissa Havel, is phenomenal. She's like, you know, she loves what she does. She enjoys it, and she gives it right back to the kids. She teaches them in that great way that they absorb everything and they love being in her class. And this is just a project-based learning kind of opportunity that she provides, and she gets a grant from the Board of Supervisors and School Fuel, about $9,000 total, to take all of these kids out. And she has multiple trips that she does, and this was just one of the days that I went with them. And they learn about plankton, they learn about the weather, they learn about navigation, the wildlife that's on the bay. So they get they go around on the sailboat in groups and to different sections and learn that. So, and they even take just a matter of 5 minutes of just sitting there and just enjoying what's around you. No quiet. And when anybody took out their phone, put your phone away. That was the guy who's the captain. And it was really good. It was really nice. So I really enjoyed that. I'm glad I was able to go.
I'm glad you got to go.
Yeah. No, I was really worried about that. Yeah. No. I was like, oh, God. Come off and I'm green.
Just two quick things. So this Saturday coming up is the MSA Showcase, so go into that. I think a couple other board members are going to that as well. The other thing is we are in the process of working with our student advocacy groups to get their input on equity. And if we really had equity in the schools the way we would like, what would that look like? So Leslie and I have been doing those meetings. We've met with San Marin, we've met with San Jose, and this week we're meeting with Marin Oaks and with Sinaloa and with, who's the other one? Nevada High, thanks. So we're going to get that input from them, and what we ask them is if there were really equity the way we want it to be, what would you see, what would you hear, what would you feel? So the reason I'm doing that is I want to make sure that all this equity work that the adults are doing, that it's actually getting down to where the students are, and we're actually seeing some changes in the school. So what would those changes look like? we're having an equity convening on May 31st, and the purpose of that is every school has an equity team. Elementary is a little differently focused than the secondary, but we're going to bring all those teams together, and we're going to have them, we'll do a fishbowl with the students to start off with, to say, here's what the students are saying they would like to see, with some suggestions for teachers about how to make that happen. So we're going to start with that. Then we'll talk about what each of the schools did around equity this year and what they learned from that. And then finally, we'll take recommendations for what are they going to do next and how we as a district can help support moving the equity work forward. Because we've done a lot of kind of awareness work, but I think we need to get more to the implementation stage. So really excited about that, and we will send an invite to you guys. I think the equity convening is on May 31st from like 3:30 to 5:30, and I think we're having it homeward bound, so we're having it off-site. So I'm really excited about kind of what we've learned from our equity work this year, and I think talking to students is really powerful to see where we need to be going. So thanks.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to our staff reports. I have no non-agenda public comment. No cards for that.
You have one.
Oh, I do have one. Okay, Aaron Fix. Hi, Aaron. Oh, we pulled this, we approved it. This, you have sub-pay.
Yeah, so I'm
So-
just gonna comment if I could on that because the consent approval was so quick, I didn't.
Okay, all right. Yep, go right
So
ahead.
I noticed that you passed the sub-pay salary schedule. And just wanted to let you know that subs are a real issue at the schools, and that we may need to consider increasing that. That subs are not NFT members, and so I don't represent them. This is not really an NFT issue. But as a teacher, I'm aware that a lot of times we're having teachers covering other teachers, which is expensive, admin covering teachers, which is really expensive, or people getting pulled back from professional developments or field trips and stuff like that. And that's just, it's unfortunate. So something to consider. I know it's nice to keep the price down, but it's also the law of the market that if we can't get the people, we may have to pay more. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, that was it for non-agenda. So let's move on to our staff report again. This is this 2018-19 LCAP, and Julia Kemke is here.
Good evening. I'm going to keep this brief. I've been before you a few times around the LCAP. This is just kind of my progress update on how our input has gone through the process of outreach to a few different stakeholder groups. So we've met with the District Advisory Committee, which is really our LCAP Advisory Committee, North Marin Council, ADCO, which is our administrative group. We had our community meeting, which was lightly attended, but there was more folks there than last year, which is a good thing. Student advisory leadership groups, and then our own kind of internal district and extended cabinet. So through that outreach, we've started to make some changes. You see my messy draft of the short version, so that's in process right now. Starting to go into the long version to update some of those things. Some of the major changes we've already talked about, and then you see also the kind of the bulleted list around those items. We do have two presentations that I'm kind of introducing as part of the LCAP because they are funded in the supplemental money. The first one being the mental health counseling and contractors. Those are all contracted positions and support that we're getting for the mental health counseling, and included in my report were the numbers from each one of our schools. So in total, we probably spend close to $500,000 for those contractors. And one of the things that we're trying to do internally, since we are working with 3 different partner organizations, is bring some internal capacity on how we're ensuring students are mentally well, as well as the whole child. So Karen Jimbo is going to speak to kind of our internal work on bringing some coordination between both instruction, special ed, as well as student services, so that we're not duplicating efforts, as well as that we're integrating the work of those partner organizations. So that's been an ongoing effort because we've increased those mental health counselors quite a bit over the last 3 years. So that's the first thing, and it's a pretty large, one of our large strategies in the LCAP. So she's going to speak to that. And then the other area, which Melissa is going to speak to. Her position itself is funded in the LCAP, and then everything in addition that we're doing for our English learners. So she's going to speak to the progress there. So I'm here to kind of say, you see some of the process there. I'll be back in June with the long version with all of the things that we've kind of changed and moved around through that input. Had a great meeting this morning with the community liaisons. They are an amazing group to get some good insight on different ways that we can support students. I'll go to DLAC coming up, and then I think that is the last outreach that I do. From there, then I take that input to finish up that long version that will come to you in June. So I'm keeping this short so that I can give these two time to talk about these strategies in more depth. So are there any questions about the LCAP in general?
I just have on your cover page.
Yes.
The bullet points,
Yeah.
the last two. Actually, the last, not the bullet points at the very end, but the ones.
Yeah, the ones from the
So
output.
the second one was, or the second to the bottom is ensure all school communities have access to funding to support field trips and enrichment. Okay, so that's kind of a new one for us. We really have.
Correct. Yeah.
So can you give us just a little snippet of that, of how are we approaching that?
So this was input from the community meeting, and parents were concerned because there was a feeling that some of our schools don't have enough funding to have equitable field trips between the different schools. What we need to take a look at, because a lot of the schools, their PTAs may fund the field trips, and other schools don't have as strong PTAs, but they have a whole bunch of state and federal fundings that come to them because of the students' populations they're serving. So what we need to do internally is take a look at their school budgets to make sure that there's some kind of equity in those field trips that are happening. So that's how we will deal with it. I don't imagine that it's actually going to show up in the supplemental.
Okay.
I am outlining, because it is part of the requirements of the outreach of the LCAP, to say this is the input that we have. And then we'll take that, and most likely what it will be, the action that we'll take is reviewing those school budgets to make sure that there is, each one of our schools have equitable opportunities to take their students on enrichment activities. And then the last bullet point there, that was from our North Marin Council, is just making sure that we're providing information back on how their kids are doing in the class. And we do that in a variety of ways, so it's just, again, a reflection, how can we do that better, and that type of thing. This is all outlined as the input that we've gotten, and then when I bring the long version back, you'll see it labeled out in one way or another in the strategies. And some of them will be in the supplemental, and some of them will be just strategies that actually don't cost money. So I don't anticipate that that one actually will cost us additional money. I think it's just us making sure that we're doing some checks and balances about how schools are offering field trips to their kids. Okay. Any other questions for me?
Trustee Nell.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I didn't like that answer.
Oh, okay.
And let me tell you what I thought we were talking about. I think I agree that there are some school sites that have a lot of additional state funding, philanthropy, but those come with conditions. They're granted to do certain things. I thought we were talking about making funds available for a true community parental effort. And the only inhibitor is their lack of financial resources to take their kids on a particular trip to the zoo. So when a school that has a wealthy PTA and parents decide that they think they're going to do some enrichment in the arts or music or science or whatever it is they decide to do, they get their checkbooks out and it's funded. So what I heard you just say is that we're just going to be auditing that, and maybe we'll take a look and see what our funders do. But I think we could do better. I think we're either, if we can't find it in our own general budget, then is there some authority we would have with these agencies that assist some of our low-income schools with funds so that they can do parental suggested enrichment programs. I think that's where I would like to have this go.
Thank you. And maybe I wasn't being clear enough about, I'm trying to rush it. So I think what we want to audit is to see what are the opportunities that are happening out there, and allow the school community to make some decisions about what they would like to see for their students. Whether or not they have the PTA funds to do that, we'll make sure that they are allowed to get their students to do the things that they want to do. And the other thing that we do want to look at is just equity in terms of access to some of these things. So if we're noticing a school going on a whole bunch of field trips and they have all this access to it, making sure that we're reaching out to the schools that don't have as many field trips offered to them, and whether or not it is a financial thing that's happening, and figuring out funding to do it either through, it could be partially through this because it would be targeted for some of the students that need it, but it would probably not be supplemental, it would be some other types of funding. So certainly we want parents at the schools where they don't necessarily have the money to pull out their checkbooks and make sure their kids get those enrichment opportunities to be able to brainstorm. Well, I want my kid to be able to access this. We'll figure out a way to make sure that they can. It's certainly a really important thing, and I know internally it impacted us when the parents were talking to this. So we'll figure out how to make sure there is some equity around that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Trustee Millerick?
We've had parts of this conversation before, and particularly on campuses where there is an opportunity to take field trips, that the whole class goes or nobody goes. And are we enforcing that? So even if it's a third grade class and that's multiple classrooms, every student in that classroom participates or no student participates because the school doesn't hold the event?
That's correct.
No, okay, good.
Yeah.
Thanks. I just wanted to make sure
Unless there's a parent that does not want that child to go for some reason or another.
Family,
but
parent preference is one thing, but lack of opportunity is really what we were addressing. And I just wanted to make sure we were
that would be
following our
yes
stated practice. Thank you very
yes.
much.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's keep moving.
All right, so I think Karen's going to come up first.
And we do have something at the table, this correct?
Yes.
So this goes with your, every board member has this in front of them.
Okay. So thank you again for the time today. This is actually very, to me, very critical, very timely, very important because we've been through so much over the last, I would say, 3 years, and we're not seeing it plateau in the last year. So on the eve of Mental Health Awareness Month, an awareness activity that's coming up next month, this is a really good opportunity to, I think, put us all on the same plane in terms of how we're looking at our kids and in terms of how we're meeting their needs. And so what you see up in the screen is the wellness wheel that SAMHSA promotes. And that's SAMHSA's primarily targeted towards adults. So some of those circles don't really apply to the kids. So if we look at, commonly we're looking at the social, the emotional, spiritual, intellectual, and physical wellness of our kids, okay? As adults, we tend to take on the more of the occupational, financial, environmental. But if we look at wellness from this perspective, it's a broad concept of functioning. So when we're looking at the continuum, we have to understand also that wellness is a journey in our process of life. So if you look at kind of the intertwining of all those areas of wellness, where we might be on a low level of wellness for one area, but then on a high level of wellness for another. An example of this is a lot of us focus on our physical wellness, so we'll go to the gym. Sometimes we'll fall off and plateau on going, and then we get back on the bandwagon again and go. So we move in that continuum. We don't always focus on each one of those elements because overall we're kind of looking at our overall functioning. So in schools, the way we look at this is, and the way it's better understood, is the continuity of care across our departmental intervention domains. So this is through instruction. This is through our mental health partners. This is through special ed. And so when you look at the universal to the intensive, we're looking at the what do all of our kids get universally? What are the targeted interventions that we provide? And what are the intensive? And typically we're looking at the academic interventions, so things like RTI, things like special ed. And more recently, we're now examining and looking at the social emotional pieces, the counseling that we're providing to our kids. So then the question becomes, how do we know that they're making progress in those interventions? We have to ask ourselves those. And as a result of our interventions on the emergency side, on the crisis side, what we discovered as individual departments and domains were that we're doing a lot of wellness efforts towards our kids, but in silos. We're doing it like in parallel paths. And so out of a few years now of having these crises surface, we built the concept of the Staff and Student Health and Wellness Collaborative, and we intentionally selected the word collaborative because we're not a committee that makes decisions and, you know, advises or makes kind of pathways. What we do is we come together and we see where we are working in those different domains of wellness to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts, to make sure that there is effectiveness towards that strand that we're focused on. And so the collaborative was designed to reduce that duplication of efforts and build cohesion in the area of universal and accessible wellness. Really, the efforts are around breaking down those silos so that we see much more of this blended effort. And much like Trustee Aguilar had said about the restorative practices, when you have elements on your school site that are blended, you're going to see much more of the effectiveness and the outcomes, the student outcomes that you want to see, okay? So, who belongs to this collaborative? Well, you can see that's very diverse, and that was purposeful. We wanted to include our health and nutrition. We wanted to make sure that our student services, all of our activities around the mental health were covered. We also have our community partners as part of this. We have English language instruction. We had very fortunate to have a social work intern with us this year who was an actual licensed clinical social worker who was so helpful to that view of how to look at students and families and community work. And so what this collaborative does is it allows us to make that triangulation from all perspectives, the triangulation of the student, the school, and our families and communities outside of the school sites. So the question is, what have we accomplished? We meet on a monthly basis. All of these folks, we welcome whoever wants to come, by the way. There's no exclusion to this. In fact, you know, you talk about the staff challenges. We actually invited our lead nurse, and they're so impacted that they couldn't even get away for an hour to come to the meeting on a monthly basis. So that was one of the elements of this collaborative that I felt like, you know, that's again something we're going to build on next year. But the question is, what did we accomplish? So we were able to establish relationships across departments that really have allowed us to have these very critical conversations about the silos and what the efforts are. We have now also had cross specialties at their committee meetings, and so then, in fact, I went to one of the fans meetings and brought the social emotional conversation, wellness conversation to the nutrition wellness conversation, and understood how they were everything's all intertwined in this idea of wellness and how we can tackle that as a group, as a cohesive group. We do, and you'll see on the next slides, we do really talk about what is it that we have and what is it that we can improve on, or what would we recommend coming out of our meetings. And so just very quickly, these are just a few examples. There are so many things happening out on our school campuses. At this level, what we're looking at is universally, what do we have that are district efforts that are helping in the wellness efforts? PBL sustainability is so critical to our instruction and quality instruction and effective instruction. PBL, in fact, is named in CASEL as an evidence-based practice to promote not just academic learning, but social emotional learning. And again, it very nice cohesion between the graduate profile and PBL. It just helps all the way around for adults and for students. FANS is doing a fantastic job on educating our kids around nutritional wellness and educating our families around nutritional wellness. The in motion that happens at our schools is super fantastic to the physical wellness of our kids and making that a normal part of their day to get their blood flowing. Expanding our first schools efforts, that's the P3 efforts up to the K5, that's incredible for school climate and culture. And then now we have the MTSS grant collaboration that's, again, crossing over departments, looking at the system of support, not just the initiatives of support, but how do those systems all speak to each other? That's part of the MTSS grant collaboration. And then our targeted work, you can see there, again, things that we know are doing really well. in terms of being on our campuses, the question continues to linger is, how are they helping us? What are the outcomes that we're seeing from our kids? How do we know where the kids can enter and exit into those interventions? When is it time to move them back to a universal effort or move them out of a targeted effort into an intensive effort? But things like having a community partnership with Marin Community Clinics with Forte has been, that's an amazing program, psychoeducational program for our kids, our newcomers. And so that's another highlight there. And as we saw today, the restorative practices, that is wonderful that it's coming down to the elementary level on a more universal basis. And of course, you know about our intensive efforts. We've got, this year we implemented, and I want to acknowledge the board in this, our AB 2246 suicide intervention policy and regs. We got on that as soon as we were required to by law. I've been talking to folks around the state, and there are school districts who still have not updated that for their efforts. So again, we were on that front end of the curve. We did a really good job here. We have a very cohesive mental health crisis response. Special ed instruction is good, and then we've got our ERMs, what's known as ERMs, at the IEP level as well. So those are the kind of a broad scope of things that we have at the universal, targeted, and intensive levels for our students. Again, there's a lot more that's happening at the school sites that aren't up there, but we know that those are active and informative. So we are a collaborative. Again, we don't make decisions. We talk to each other and across departments. And so part of this is our recommendations. What we're seeing is things that could be considered, things that in our departments and across our departments, things that we really want to be focusing on, working on to improve. So of course it goes without saying that we want to continue to promote self-care and wellness, the wellness continuum for all. This includes our adults, our teachers, our support providers, because like the saying goes, if you don't put on your oxygen mask first, you can't help somebody else. And so I think that goes a long way when you have a very stressful job, like teaching, public service, to be able to help our kids and be in a good place to help our kids. Another thing that has surfaced over the past 3 years that I am seeing more and more of is making sure that we're trauma informed. The key to this is building our faculty and staff capacity for this element of our work. It is just like our equity work, it's understanding the perspective of another person's experience, and more focused though on the trauma piece. Breaking down the barriers, our interagency relationships, we have really fantastic work with Healthy Novato and their interagency work, and as we start to expand our collaboratives with community partners, it's so important for us to be all on the same page and be able to work as an interagency, have that interagency relationship. So just like our SHOC, our collaborative, that all of us at the district level and the community level are all on the same page. Looking for more professional development for more effective and informed community liaisons. They are our first line on the universal level for our families, again, to triangulate that community, student, and school relationship and effectiveness, and giving our families a resource in the community to be able to reach out, because we can't do everything at the schools. We have to be able to link our families to those community supports. Universal screening for social emotional status paired with SEL in all of our classrooms. This is one of the pieces that it's controversial, but it's critical to understanding where our baseline is for our students, where they are coming through in progress monitoring their intervention for mental health, and then allowing, again, talking about that entry-exit piece for interventions, whether they need to go to a more intensive intervention or return to the universal supports that everyone is receiving. Universal design for learning and lesson planning. Expanding the suicide prevention training to all grade levels. Right now, we've only had it at the secondary level. We are really seeing the need to expand that to all of our grade levels so that all of our adults are aware of what prevention education looks like. And then mental health aid for students and adolescents. We want to put the power in the students' hands, much like the restorative circles do. We want to be able to give them the knowledge to be able to help one another. And then our targeted piece, there's some systems pieces here. So coordination of services teams speaks to that fluency of moving in and out of our interventions. So having someone, case manager, to be able to understand the data that comes out of that intervention and student outcomes to be able to move them in, again, fluidly in and out of those interventions. Expanding the Fuerte program to a greater number of students and families. I think this is another critical piece of our population, that understanding how to meet their needs and being able to meet more of the student needs, a greater number of students. Creative staffing and attracting and retaining critical shortage mental health areas. We've talked about this again for years. Looking at creatively how to meet our students' needs that are in areas where the ed code requires a certain type of credential, not just at that targeted level, but at that really intensive level. Being creative, and I'm going to acknowledge Kelly, our director of special ed, because she's really worked hard on that this year and getting our MFTs in to be able to meet those needs for our mental health ERMs for our IEP students. Increasing student involvement in our FANS nutrition efforts. They've got to really, it's getting them excited about nutrition and eating well, keeping that going. And then something that came to us both from the faculty level and the student level, we've gotten some inquiry from students about where are our opportunities to voice. So student advisory groups for mental wellness. Promoting some of the student groups, clubs, and things at the high school level is good, but also being able to let them voice their opinions about what they feel is needed. And I think those equity conversations help in that as well. So looking ahead for SHOC. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. You've got that flyer in English and Spanish in front of you. We will have a group of SHOC reps at our tour, at the Tour of Novato. They'll have a table promoting awareness for mental health and Every Mind Matters, the California initiative on mental health and mental wellness. Okay, that's it.
All right, board members, Trustee Millerick.
Thank you for the very informative overview. I spent the morning today working with a group. I have some students at University of California, San Francisco campus doing mental health projects. And I was talking to the lead investigator and said we'd be talking tonight about mental health issues. And their primary focus is on rural and urban health for young people, and I would like to introduce you to the lead investigator and see if there's something we can find a collaboration between UC's research and our community.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Good. Okay. So Karen Jimbo, you're on the right.
Yes.
You'll get an email tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other board members? Questions? Comments? Trustee Nell.
Congratulations on covering a very long and complicated subject in such a brief but succinct way. I appreciate your bringing this forward and reporting on it, because mental health is very important. Without so much going into the details of what you covered tonight, I think it's important for us as the fiduciaries of an public educational system to acknowledge or try to recognize the reason that we would invest in, or we would have so much concern over our student body's health, wellness, and health. And I think that the goal, the shared goal here is so we can educate them.
Absolutely.
And they'll be able to participate and learn at a much better rate when they're not distracted by whatever it is that's bothering them or distracting them, or circumstances or environment beyond their control. So I think it's a valuable service that you help us to provide, and for looking at it from that perspective, I'm grateful that we make the effort. So thank you for your report tonight.
Thank you.
Trustee Aguila.
Yeah, that's okay.
You spilled your water, huh?
That's why I don't like cups. Okay.
She was thirsty.
So with this program, which is wonderful, it's okay. With this program, I'm wondering, do we have this on the website?
Not yet.
Not
That's
yet.
a good question. So, with another one of our teams, we're working on the concept of a tab, and can I, okay. It's not, we haven't really finalized or made a clear decision on it. We are planning on changing one of the sections on the front page of the website to wellness, and then having that be the avenue for a lot of the resources that we already have on our website that are buried. They're hard to find. So having that right on the front page, we've already kind of talked about how to move that forward. So we're refining that at this point, but that's one of our plans for next year.
And while you're at it, I'm just wondering, is the name, this name gonna change hopefully?
That's a good question. I don't know. It,
Yeah.
it was, I think the
Very catchy. I mean, it's wonderful how, the program is wonderful. I'm just wondering if, while you're working on it.
the main word in there is the collaborative. We wanted to emphasize that we are a collaborative. And who knows, things are changing and moving, so, and we're not necessarily a public entity, so we can change it however we like.
Okay, and then also, when you do put it on the website, could it be in Spanish possibly?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Thank you.
And I think Trustee Nell was correct. We need to educate the whole child, not just the educational piece, but the whole child. So, and I would like to see, we do the weekly, or not weekly, monthly newsletters, like from curriculum instruction and from CFO. I would love to see special ed in there and wellness and services that we have. Some newsletter quarterly, that would be great.
Okay,
I think we need to put more information out there, doesn't hurt. And let me just say thank you to you and to Kelly and your team with the crisis management of any situation that pops up. We've had, unfortunately, too many situations pop up, and we needed you the next day, the next hour, and you are there.
Thank you.
So I know this board really appreciates your team being there and serving our students and their families. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, so now the next part of this is our English learner update, and we have Melissa Diaz. Hi, Melissa. Hi. Nice to see you. We haven't seen you in a while. But you're making a difference, right?
So thanks for having me. It's been over a year since I've been up here, and as I'm looking, and I'm sad that Manuela left, but I actually taught Manuela when she was in 5th grade at Hamilton, and so when I see her here today as student board member, it really it warms my heart, and I'm super excited for her and where she's going, and the growth that she has made and who she is, and I liken it to this program with our English language development and our English learners, because it was just 3 short years ago that you approved this position, and I thank you for that. I say this every year, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I am honored and blessed to serve this school district that I am a product of in this position, in this role. And I think you can tell in this 4-page document that there's a lot that's going on upstairs. There's a lot of continuity that you'll see within the LCAP, between my presentation and Karen's. I get to work with Karen on a weekly basis. She's phenomenal, as you already know, so I feel blessed. So down to business, because I know that I need to get on with this because you have a tight agenda, but looking at our English Language Development Board report for this year, and within our department, we are really focusing on 3 main points. So we have systems and process, instruction, and then social and emotional wellness and learning. To start off systems and process, we worked very diligently this year with IT and Alex Perez to create a student snapshot. And this is launched for our English learners. We started at the elementary level. And what this does is it provides a monitoring process, and it's great for our students, our teachers, and our staff, so that, and parents as well. They have understanding of where their students are academically and their current academic standing. It's kind of small here. I hope you can see it, but I'll just kind of give you an overview. The top part of it is information demographics about the student regarding their CELT level. If they're a CELT level 3, for example, it'll tell the teacher, this is a great teacher tool, their needs academically, where they are. Below that is some other information. It could be, if it's a high school student, for example, it could be their current grades. And then below that is any assessment that the student has taken. We can also utilize this for placement at the elementary level, and it really helps teachers identify their English learners. This is something that we have not had in the district prior, so this was a big movement and a shift in a really great direction. So this, again, was in partnership with IT. Talking about Ell Reclassification. So as you can see, I am showing you a comparative of NUSD with our county and our state, and the yellow highlighted column. There you can see we are at par. Basically, we're at 14.8%. So we got a little bit over the county and a little bit over the state, which is something to celebrate today. Just as a reminder, this is last year's data coming in, so this is the most recent. We are holding our reclassification ceremony for our current students that are being reclassified this year on Monday at the NHS Old Gym. If you're able to make it, we'd love to have you out there. We always have a really great turnout, and this is something to celebrate. Moving out of the systems and process, we're looking into the instruction. We have 3 top priorities for this year and as we move into the next year, but it says 1, 1, 1. We're looking at designated instruction at all levels. So we're really focusing on ELD time. The second one is integrated and content support instruction at all levels, and this is at elementary and secondary, and then an articulation with SPED in order to ensure support and training. We are continuing our contract with Clark Consulting and Training. Moving into next year, we are decreasing the contract, however, and that's in the plan. There are some key learning acceleration principles that we utilize: clear learning objective, using complete sentences, student production, error correction, and push. And this is something that you would see if you were a 5th grader right now and you were going in, transitioning into middle school, into EL and EL program in there, you would see the same principles. So we're trying to build that continuity as well. Just wanted to remind the board that this is the 3rd year of implementation with Clark Consulting. We have phased this out from the high school, then to the middle school, and now we're into the elementary. We currently have implementation at all secondary schools, including Marin Oaks. We have 15 secondary teachers trained and that are receiving continuous training throughout the year and coaching support. We also have 70 elementary teachers trained, which is phenomenal. So we've done cohorts throughout the year, and they're continuing to receive training. They will continue to receive training and coaching next year, and then we will add 2 additional training cohorts to continue the training for the remainder of the elementary teachers who have not been trained yet. And our intention with our internal instructional coaches is to be self-sufficient and be able to run our own trainings and our own coaching support in years to come. And speaking of our instructional coaches, we have Amber Hatfield and Leslie Smith, and they are providing professional development within our ELD department, as well as they are also working on their coaching development skills. They explore other school districts for best ELD practices to bring back to NUSD. They are supporting teachers TK through 12, and they attend trainings and different partnerships throughout Marin County and California in order to improve practice and bring it back home. ELECT is a collaborative team that I'm super excited about. It was formed to establish a group of people to work towards a plan for our elementary school teachers and our students, essentially. We have a representative, one from each school site, from each elementary school site, and it's a very passionate team. The snapshot that I showed you at the beginning is, that was kind of birthed in this team. We have another program I'll talk about in a bit that was also created out of this team. So it's super exciting. We get a lot done, and we will continue this for next year. Social and emotional wellness. So as Julia talked about, we had our 4th collaborative for our community liaisons this morning, actually. Great group of ladies supporting sites, and we are going to be continuing that for next year with the goal in mind to really support our liaisons through professional development and that continuous collaborative time where they're able to come together and share their own practices and what we're finding is best practices from each one of them. And it's really developing our liaisons as well. So that's very exciting. And Marta Posada is here this evening, so our newcomer counselor. This will conclude her second year here. It's a good picture. Yeah, this is going to conclude her second year in the district, and she is supporting our newcomers primarily at the secondary level. I can't say enough wonderful things about Marta, and it's not just because she's sitting in the room. She's fabulous. As you can see, and you get in your weekly board updates, often you'll see what's happening in the programs that she's currently implementing and supporting. Just some phenomenal things that I really want to touch on because I think this is at the heart of where we're going. The student experience and getting to know students and that intake process is really her forte. And she's really developing a presence at our secondary level, which is very exciting. She actually oversees a COS, the Coordination of Services team at Novato High School, that has many members present at, and this has been instrumental in making sure that our students, especially our newcomer students, are accessing services and programs and resources that they might not have known were available had this not come along or had she not been there. The Jumpstart program is something that I'm super excited about. She's very passionate about this. This is in partnership with our community college. It's an early matriculation process, so I'm so proud to report that this year we have 17 newcomers who are a part of this Jumpstart program. Just to highlight some of the things, they are already going to one of the community colleges and they're applying, they're filling out FAFSA, they're taking their English and math assessments. So this is already happening there. And then their scholarships, I think we have 11 students who are receiving a scholarship from a community college, so through this Jumpstart program. And again, I just want to reiterate, would not happen if she wasn't in this position or this position wasn't made available. So I want to thank you for that. Marta worked diligently with Jen Larson and our registrars at the high school to ensure that our international transcript process was equitable and accurate, and so that was something to commend her on as well. And then finally, under Marta, and this is not all. She's a very busy lady, but the Fuerte program that you heard Karen touch on is going to start on May 3rd. It's a 5-session program for our newcomer families, and this is a reunification emotional training program, essentially, that is going to be very impactful. So I'm excited to report back to the board about that progress as well. I do want to touch on one last thing that came out of our elect. We have been struggling at the elementary level specifically on how to support our newcomers because they don't have a section, for example, of ELD. So we're providing that designated support along with all of the other English learners that are receiving designated time, but our newcomers we know need more as far as that academic support. So through elect, we kind of went round and round. How can we support students? We have a Title III budget that is specific for immigrant funding. And so what we decided to do was give access to students either in the mornings before school starts or after school. And we have a classroom teacher who is there to provide intensive language development instruction, very focused on basic needs, right? How to access, if a student needs to use the restroom, how would you ask that? And we've paired it in alignment with our methods, with the CCT methods that we're currently teaching in the classroom for continuity. So our instructional coaches work diligently to create a 10-week scope and sequence, very fluid for our students to access language, like I said, either in the morning or in the afternoon. When they come in, they're given a snack. They build a little bit of sense of community. It's a great place because students are in a smaller environment and there's like students there, right? Oh, you just got here too type of scenario, and they might not know that kiddo, out on the yard, et cetera. And so they're really starting to build that. And I just had a teacher share an anecdotal that she teaches 3rd grade, and she went to the teacher who's teaching one of these before school programs, and she said, I don't know what you're doing, but the kid in my class who never speaks is speaking. So that's very endearing, and it's nice to know that what we're putting in place is definitely, there's some some good things happening. And I thank you so much for, again, allowing me to speak to you tonight and share all the great things that are happening, and then also just to continue in supporting these programs that we're pushing, and that we are definitely seeing a lot of change, positive change. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Trustee Cooper, and then Trustee Millerick.
Thank you so much for doing everything, and everybody here for all your work. I do have a couple questions, and the first one is about how many newcomers do we have like right now?
It fluctuates,
Right,
yeah. So just to define newcomer, it's foreign born 3 years or less within public education in the United States. So right now, I just checked a couple days ago, and I would say I would guesstimate probably about 400-ish, and we're down. Some of that has to do with, I can't even speculate at this point. I'll just say that we are down, and I'm kind of trying to pull the numbers to see where that's coming from and why.
Wow. And so with respect...
You said 400?
About
no,
that,
I can't believe that.
Yeah. I can check on it again, and
That's huge.
It's been more in the past. So when we reported last year, it was about 500. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's down a bit.
So regarding the student snapshot then, so do when you're a newcomer, you come, just so I understand, you'll come to the district and you'll give the student snapshot, or is it once a year?
It's once a year.
Beginning of the year.
Yeah, and it's typically not for our newcomers, and the only reason is because I don't have data on them. Okay. And so what I do is I'll let depending on, they get initial test done, a SELT test done, and I can then place them and let a teacher know, okay, these are the specific needs of a student. But as far as the snapshot, it's for our annual students because I have data to be able to hand them something. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, great question.
And I think that's it, thank you.
Okay. Trustee Millerick, and then Trustee Nell.
We're short time, so a couple of quick comments.
Sure.
Pardon me. The first thing on the your key learning acceleration principles, your slide, the top bullet says clear learning objectives. And I would like to note that as you build the program, the first people you hold accountable are yourselves. Your criteria is first, let us be clear about what we're going to teach before you then take step 2 and start working on the accountability of the students. And I'm thrilled. I'm glad that we hold ourselves to the same high standard.
Yes.
The second thing I noticed is on the next slide it says, we are out exploring other school districts. We're not happy just to look at how well we're doing. Our counselors are tasked to, in fact, scour the state and the United States for better programs, and I commend you on that. That is, there's always somebody who's doing it a little bit better than us. We should find them.
Yes.
And then finally, Martha's work making this personal and individual, so every student knows that somebody's looking out after them, there's somebody they can go to, there's an opportunity, is what makes the difference. All 400 kids, and I'll bet you know all 400 names, is what makes this an opportunity. Some communities are satisfied to integrate their newcomers over multiple generations. Mom and dad can get through this time and maybe their kids will be successful in the American economy. Nevada's not happy with that answer at all. We are working to make sure they are successful first generation, and you're the leading edge of that endeavor. And it sounds to me like you're being successful. These kids need it. These families need it. Thank you very much for all the hard work. It's extraordinary, unfortunately, but it is.
Trustee Nell.
Yeah. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah,
Sure.
please come up to the mic.
Oh, sorry.
If I may, I first of all, thank you for your comments. And second, I would like to acknowledge that as a district, when I first came to work here, I realized very quickly that although the programs were not implemented, that certainly the heart and the vision was there, and certainly the leadership and the work that we've done has been a true partnership, not only district, but the community liaisons, the administration at each of the schools, the counseling staff, the district leadership. And so it truly has been, it does take that village to help all the kids that are most vulnerable and the newcomers, obviously, and their families. So every time that we touch and we make that success, it's not only for that student, but also for their siblings, their parents. I also have the privilege of working at the adult school, so I'm catching them at both ends. So they're coming in, and if for some reason life takes them away from us prematurely from the high schools, then we're bridging to the adult school as well. But the work that we're doing is a team effort, and I like to acknowledge that I couldn't have done it without the leadership and the vision of somebody like Melissa, and the leadership and the vision of Jim to support our programs for the benefit of them, those kids. So.
Thank you for your comments. Trustee Nell.
Yeah, I wish we had a better title than coordinator, but Coordinator Diaz, it's always a pleasure to see you. In fact, you talked earlier about having a 5th grade student. It was great to see that student grow into a position of student trustee, and I have a similar experience. I can remember meeting you years ago, and you have grown tremendously, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing for the district, and I think you've had a lot of successes due to your commitment. So I just wanted to congratulate you and thank you for that. My question is do you participate in the Elementary English Learning Advisory Committee? You are integrated with that.
I do have insight on that, yes, because there's an overlap.
So are you integrated, or do you have insight, or do you participate in the process?
Depends on what the topic is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe that's something that I would like to hear more about, or why you're not more integrated in that particular process.
Absolutely.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Trustee Scott.
Well, I just want to say thank you for everything you guys are doing. It sounds really amazing, and I'm just looking for an update here, and you may not have the answer, and if you don't, somebody can certainly get back to me. But I recall a conversation around our newcomers as far as that language barrier with transcripts and then being in high school and getting that diploma. Where are we with that? Do you have any idea as far as where we're at? But I know it was something we were working on, but I haven't heard or read anything else. I want to say it was last year, and all of a sudden this reminded me of that, and I thought, hey, for our newcomers, our high school students that are coming from high schools from another country who have taken various classes, kind of figuring out what those transcripts were, what they've had, what they're proficient in. Do you know where we're at with that by any chance?
Yeah, so Jen Larson works diligently on that, and I believe that it was brought to the board and passed.
Yeah.
So she is now in the process of creating a process and systems on how to roll that out at each of the sites so that there's clarity and continuity between all three. And I know that it's happening, and with the support of Marta and our registrars, there's trainings that are happening, and she has a document that each site registrar will follow as an intake, and then a counselor, an academic counselor, will oversee that process and sign off on it. So it is happening. I wouldn't say that we're 100% there yet. We're kind of trudging through uncharted territories right now, and so I can ask her to provide an update to the board.
I would love to see an update on that. It's just,
Sure.
it's come across my mind a couple of times,
Yes.
and it resurfaced. Okay, thanks so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No more comments? Okay.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right, that concludes our staff report on the LCAP and those sub-area categories as well regarding wellness and English learner. And now we'll move on to the 18-19 budget assumptions. We have Yancey presenting. Okay.
Sorry, the presentation is not up there. So.
What's the score of the Warriors game?
Thank you.
There, I killed some time.
All right, thank you very much. All right. So we're at the point in our budget process where we're starting to move full speed into 2018-19 budget development. This year's a little bit different than other years, as we've been spending so much time on the budget. And so a lot of this information in the past was kind of, you know, it was some of the first or second time you were kind of hearing this. So a lot of the information in the presentation and in the report probably is things you've heard as we've done this over the past 6 months. So I'm just going to focus on a few of the key items in here and open it up to any questions. So the next really important date is mid-May, when the governor's May revision will be out. Given the Prop 98 and I won't get into technical terms, but what kind of test year we're in and those kind of things, we don't actually expect a huge change in overall revenues from the January proposal. But it will be interesting to see if the governor has changed any of his proposals, especially around one-time money or moving towards maybe some additional ongoing funds. But I don't necessarily expect that given this governor's history. After that, we will update that, turn it around, and be ready for the June 12th and 19 budget adoption as we go into next year. In terms of budget assumptions, just a couple things to note. If you look at LCFF gap funding in 2018-19, it notes in 100%, which sounds pretty good. It sounds really nice. And it is good that they have met their funding target that they came up with about 6 years ago. In terms of funding, but it is important to note that a couple things come along with that. One thing to note is LCFF gap funding and the funding targets were set at the 2007-2008 funding levels for schools, adjusted for inflation. So basically, full funding of education means back in 2007-08, when we were 45th in the nation in terms of per pupil funding. And as we all spent a lot of time talking about, we didn't have massive increases in pension costs. So we're back to our 2007-08 levels with our largest cost increased by 10%. So it is important to note that. One piece of information that I think is valid is there was a bill that was passed out of the legislature's education committee, which was a bill to increase all of the gap funding targets by 60%. So now, I want to be clear, that doesn't mean any more money next year, but it does, at least the governor, and well, hopefully the governor, but the legislature is acknowledging that quote-unquote full funding under the LCFF is not an adequate funding level. And so that would push that out. And so I think that is an important thing, and it would be a very good thing for education as we move on towards that. Also, supplemental grant funding would be increased by a little over $250,000 a part of that. So some of the money that we will be getting in would be required to be used towards additional or improved services to our low-income or English learners. And then the change in enrollment projection. The change in enrollment is projected to be next year 109 reduction. That's approximately $1 million loss in funding just due to those 109 students. And as I've kind of noted before, that reduction is related to, we have 660 seniors in this district right now. Over the past 6 years, we've averaged about 500 kindergartners every year. So it's simply those 12th graders going out and the new set of kindergartners coming in. All right. There also is significant one-time funding in this budget, as this governor has been using frequently. The problem, obviously, with one-time funding is that we can only use it once, and we cannot commit it to ongoing purposes. So it's very difficult to we'll always take the money, but we obviously would prefer it to be ongoing funding that we could put towards ongoing commitments. And then the last thing to note is the PERS rate has been finalized by the state. As we remember, the PERS rate is set by the PERS board, whereas the STRS rate is set by the legislature. So the PERS board has set the rate this year at a little over 18%. That's a 2.5% increase from this year. And the increased STRS rate is 16.28. That's an increase of 1.85% over the year. So just the increase in STRS and PERS rate costs over $1 million in additional ongoing funding. So when you look at the 2018-19 year, you see some ongoing increases, but those are very quickly offset by the $1 million of additional PERS and STRS cost, and then the $1 million due to the reduction in our ADA that we're having. That doesn't even get into when we have STRS and PERS and negotiation costs and other things. As we move forward, our new projections show a continued trend of us losing approximately 1% in declining enrollment due to that lower birth rate in Marin County starting in 2008, 2009. We're projected to reduce by 500 students over the next 5 years as the bubble moves through our system in middle and high school. The multi-year projection is the same that you saw at second interim. It's important to note that the CSEA agreement that was approved of about $300,000 is not included in the current and out years. But on a positive note, the $1.5 million in budget reductions that we were forced to make are not included in there as well. So as we move forward, those two items will be included, as well as the governor's may revise and all the other budget work that we're doing, which will come later in May. Increase in STRS and PERS. I already noted $1 million a year annually in increases, and over the period of which it was implemented, over $6 million annually in increases, and that's 60 teachers more that we could have if that didn't go into place. In terms of our second interim fund balance and reserve, the fund balance, along with the PERS and STRS Fund 17 fund balance, is approximately 15%, which is a reserve goal of this board. And so anything obviously going below that would be going below the reserve target of the board. We've already gone into a lot of detail about our challenges and the budget reductions that we were forced to make. So we've moved forward with those. There's a detail of the recommendations that were made. And as we move forward into 2018 budget needs, a lot of these are ongoing initiatives and continuing to fund those ongoing initiatives. And so with that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions.
Trustee Millerick.
A simple question to start, and Trustee Nell wants to ask this, but I'm going to ask it instead. The additional cost that we're seeing in light of the PERS, STRS, reserves that are being set aside based on the state's analysis of their pension programs. So when we say they're the slides in back of me, like 18%, is that base salary times 18%? or is half of that out of the employee share and half out of our share? Or is
So-
that 100% in addition to what their base salary is? I just need to be clear.
Absolutely. So the 18% is our percentage. It's on top. So it's as a percentage, 18% of, so I'm a PERS member. So 18% of my salary would be put away on the district side.
So to be clear, this is
Yeah.
an imaginary person.
Yes.
You're an NUSD employee. You make because my mind is simple, $100,000 a year. There's some confusion in the audience. $10,000. I don't even like that number. So $100,000. So that means in addition to the $100,000 you were paid as an employee, the district has to put $18,000 towards the state. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, for every $100,000 of payroll, $18,000 of PERS costs will be paid for the district. The employees pay on top of that as well. So that is only the district share.
Out of the $100,000 of payroll they get, some of that is also doesn't go in their pocket to buy groceries. It goes to the retirement program. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
How much? You think?
In the STRS, noting it would be about $10,000. In the PERS, it would be about $7,000, and that has to do with some vested pension rights. It also changes, not to get it complicated. Employees who started after 2013 are in an updated pension, but a majority of our employees are pre that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the big numbers. So the real question I need to get to is, those contributions that are being made are not to make the pension plan more lucrative so teachers get more in the future than they thought they were going to get. It's that the stock market's earnings that the pensions had invested in did not pay off like they expected, and so they had to reassess they had to find the money someplace else. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, the current assets that are in both the PERS and the STRS programs are not sufficient to meet the present value of the benefits that they have to pay out in the future. And so the plan set up in both PERS and STRS is to increase over the next 30 years those rates in order to make up that difference, like you noted, in the stock market and other, potentially maybe unrealistic earnings expectations that the STRS and PERS had.
Well, whatever they had.
Whatever they had.
We weren't on the board. We didn't guess. They guessed wrong, basically.
And
so here we are.
And I think it's important to note that that this board does not set either pension benefit levels or what the district pays. We are at the PERS board subject to on PERS we're subject to the PERS board, and STRS to the legislature.
Thank you for clarifications.
Any further questions? I have a blue card, so I'm going to move forward with that. Aaron Fix.
Hi, I'm Aaron Fix, President, Nevada Federation of Teachers. One thing that I did notice, you can see negotiations is 2018-19 identified budget need. So I appreciate that. With our calculations, we just got one of our comparable districts settlement in that we hadn't known about previously. And with their increase, our movement towards being at 100% of the average of our comparable districts has now pretty much been eroded to zero. So we've kind of, stood still this year. It's my hope that it's this board's goal to bridge that gap. Every district in the state is dealing with these increased pension costs, and our comparable districts included, and they're managing to do it. So it really is, there's an increased burden on the district. I think that's unsustainable in the long run. I think this district can probably manage it because we have a better tax base than than many, but those really low income districts are going to hit the rocks much sooner than us, and when they start falling down and going bankrupt, then I think we'll see. Because I either public education collapses in California or they change their plan somehow. So from this presentation, it's my interpretation that there is an additional $470 per student. That's not insignificant. And so I hope that we can create a multi-year plan. I understand that it can't be in 1 year, but a multi-year plan to make a commitment to get us to the 100% of our comparables, because we've agreed on comparable districts. If we've made that agreement, then if it has any sort of meaning, then it means we do something about that, right? We use that data to move us in a good direction, particularly when admin is above the average of our comparables and teachers are below, right? That's really the thing. If everybody was 4% behind, I wouldn't have anything to, I wouldn't have anything to say, right? If we've decided as a district that we have more schools, more smaller schools, we have, smaller class sizes, things like that, and we've agreed that's our priority, and everybody's shouldering that burden equally, that's one thing. But when one group is bearing more of the cost and the other group is bearing less of the cost, then, right, that's inequity, and that's something that is an issue for us. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the board? All right, we'll move on and we'll continue to get an update from Yancy once the May revise occurs. We'll get another update. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's move on to our discussion action. First item is approval of the calendar 1920 calendar.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm here to bring before you the 2019-20 student calendar. Pleased to say that we're back into a cycle of calendars that are a little easier to work with. Had a broad-based committee of teachers, classified employees, management employees, and a couple folks that were serving in a couple different capacities, but including parents in the district. And we came up with a calendar that I believe that worked well for the committees. They all brought them back to their sites, middle schools, elementary schools, high schools, got some feedback, made some changes. I do want to give a little shout out to Ms. Fremantle's class. They saw the original draft of the calendar and they wanted to make a change, so they decided to advocate for themselves in that change. They wrote me a letter advocating for the change. The change was that we moved the suggestion was to move a professional development day from early November, or like maybe mid-November, to November 1st. So it was the day after Halloween. So we made that proposed change. They brought it back to the school sites, and I'm happy to say that that change is included in this calendar. So good for student voice and student advocacy. They did it the right way, and this time it worked out. So. Again, it's a good solid calendar this year. Works well around the way the breaks fall, and so it's my recommendation, superintendent's recommendation, to approve the 1920 school calendar.
All right, wow. Trustee Nell.
Calendars are a lot harder to do than I think most people think, especially when it's complicated as an organization as large as ours. And I have to chuckle when you said, you opened up by saying, I'm happy to say we've moved back to a more sensible calendar, which is exactly what the person before you said when we moved the calendar, where we had it. So here's my biggest concern about how, do we have to set this calendar tonight in stone? Because I don't think the public has really had an opportunity to see the calendar, and I just think, I know that it may be out there for a reading, at least one or two or something, and maybe there might be no public input at all. But I just wanted to know what are we going to do if we haven't thought of everything, which we often do. in this particular case. So are we approving this calendar tonight to be set in stone, and what sort of decisions would be made as a result of us setting this calendar? Or is there time to have a public, to give it time for the public to read it before we make a final decision?
I will rely on the judgment of the board. This calendar closely mirrors what we've done historically. When I say come back to a sensible calendar, what I mean is the way dates fall on a given calendar make it difficult. And what you find is out of every 7 years, there's 2 or 3 years, and they're in a row, where it's hard to find like when breaks are going to fall so people have good time for travel. So typically what we do is we bring this and the calendar is approved the first time that you see it. Again, like I said, it very closely mirrors the start date and end dates of previous times. The breaks fall very similarly. The devil's sort of, like you mentioned, in the details of what happens internally on the calendar as far as when do professional development days occur, when do the minimum days occur, when do the semester breaks or trimester breaks fall, that sort of thing. So really at the discretion of the board.
Okay.
So I, the recommendation is to move ahead with setting the calendar. That can be the decision of the board, but if we really are not making decisions, if there isn't a sense of urgency, I don't hear it, that this calendar be approved so that things can be set permanently. I really think it's the public's right to have an opportunity to see what's been presented tonight and comment on it.
I think you're right. In some ways, we do have a committee that meets and really walks us through. And I'm glad that the committee met, because there was one year the committee did not meet and we got the calendar and that blew up in our face. So here we are with a calendar that does really resemble what it should be, what it always has been. It's just that the date, the actual numbers have changed. Just the date itself, because now like the last day of school is on the 11th instead of this year it's on the 8th. So it's quite a shift in just the number, but it's the same amount of weeks and everything all works out, the number of days. So I'm totally open to having public review, but again, the public review is looking at the agenda, and here it is on our agenda, and we had a committee look at it, so I'm fine moving forward with it. But let's have the full board discussion, and Trustee Scott's got a question.
I have a question around the breaks. Since we have some magnet schools with MSA and STEM, and we have children coming from other districts, have we checked in with MCOE and other districts around the county? Are we on the same break schedule as them? I don't want to be, okay, you're nodding your head yes.
Yeah,
that's a yes.
It's a great question. All of our internal breaks, the midwinter break, the spring break, and the winter breaks are all common.
Okay, so we're good with MCOE and the rest of the, okay.
We weren't at one time.
I know we weren't, and that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
So now that we're doing a change, I just want to make sure, hey, I want to help our families, not have them go crazy on breaks.
Yeah. That's a great question.
Okay, anybody else? And anybody want to weigh in on Derek's recommendation to have public review, so give it another cycle through bring it back at the next board meeting?
It doesn't matter to me.
Trustee Nell.
So I'm not making a recommendation, President Butler.
Okay.
I basically, I'm making an inquiry, and my goal is to seek information, and I really don't want it to be a problem, and it sounds like that we've contacted the necessary people, that you mentioned the committee has worked on it. So again, I just want to reiterate, if it's really the staff's recommendation is to move it, then I'll go ahead, but I'm not sure I heard a clear answer from staff. Is there any pending decisions? Is there anything that we need to know that we need to put into place if we adopt this calendar on a permanent basis tonight? That ought to be a big part of our decision. And if the answer were yes, then I'd be more anxious to get it approved and move forward. But if there really is no reason to formally adopt it tonight, then I think, quite frankly, we should put it out for the public to comment on. And I'd also, the thing, sometimes, I think that synchronicity with the county and everything is appropriate. It makes total sense, but I think the real priority is what this community wants to set its dates at. And so in the past, when we haven't been necessarily synced, with other organization. I think there was, at the time, good reason to do so. So I will, at this point, it's up, it's up to the board discretion. But if there's time to let it air, I think we should bring it back.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Miller?
So, staff is supposed to do the kind of work Trustee Nell has outlined, and it's important work. It needs to happen. And Trustee Butler has pointed out what happened when we didn't do it, and the kind of stumbling all over our feet that we went through for a better part of a year as we kept having issues come up. Things just didn't work well. I'm willing to assume staff did their work in this case, so I'll make a motion to approve the calendar as presented, and we'll see how we vote.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Miller.
And we have, simple enough.
A second. Trustee Aguila is a second. Any comments, questions? Okay. So we have a first by Trustee Miller, a second by Trustee Aguila to approve the 2019-20 school calendar. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so we have a vote of 6-1. Yeah. Thank you, Trustee Nell. All right, our next item is still Chris. We have the next two. The first one is, this is a resolution because it's a Certificated Teacher Appreciation Week, which is like an exciting week.
Yeah. So, again, thanks for having me. This is the resolution to approve Certificated Teacher Appreciation Week, which is May 7th through 11th. Obviously, teachers play a critical role in the education of our children, really. And it goes beyond the education of our children. It's teaching them about life, giving them the tools and resources necessary in order to be successful. And it's a week-long celebration that recognizes the consistently high level of work performed by our certificated staff. And so I bring this resolution before you in hopes that you will approve it in conjunction with National Teacher Appreciation Week.
Comments? Anybody? Okay. So I just say that our PTAs really step up and make sure our teachers are recognized throughout the month of May. They make it a week of, they feed them anything and everything that they possibly can, and even gift cards when they get them. So I appreciate the PTAs. I know the board does, of really taking the reins on this and celebrating our teachers, and know that the board really appreciates what you do, and you're making an impact on our students here in Novato. So thank you for those efforts that you do each and every day to make a difference for our students. So with that said, we'd like to move forward on this. I need a motion. Okay. Trustee Scott is a first, and a second by Trustee Cooper. All in favor to approve the resolution for Teacher Appreciation Week. Okay, 7-0. Thank you. And now another great group in our district, our classified employees.
Yeah, so as you know, we've got our certificated employees. Everybody sees them, your teachers and administrators. And then we have our phenomenal classified employees who very often do the works behind the scenes so that everybody else can be successful. They get our students to school, they feed our schools, or feed our students. They make sure that our schools are clean and safe, that they're well organized, that they're running efficiently and effectively. And so the week of May 21st through May 25th is Classified Employee Appreciation Week. And I hope that you will support us as well in approving this resolution to honor our classified school employees.
Okay. And the same thing, classified, you are just as important as our teachers, and thank you for the work that you do, and you provide that support to our students and our teachers and everybody in this district. You keep the wheels in motion, as I always say every year, and again, you always make a difference to make our district look really good, so thank you.
I'll move.
Okay, Trustee Scott is a first, Trustee Aguila is a second. All in favor to approve the resolution for Classified Employee Appreciation Week? 7-0. All right. The next item.
Thank you.
Do you have a? Yeah. Everybody, you get a car and you get a car. No, sorry.
I was just asking if all staff members get a new Corvette, or if there's just some of them that get the new orange.
Just something that works. Just something that works. We have a Chevy Malibu that Joel used to drive.
Okay, so just to reiterate what Trustee Nell brought up at the beginning of the meeting is that these next items, D, E, and F, yeah, we'll stick with D, E, and F because G is regarding the stadium lights, and so we'll do that. But D, E, and F, we'll just present them all at the same time, and we'll walk through the questions, and then we'll go back and work on the approval or not approval and all of that. So first up is the schematic design for the project and project schedule and project cost estimates for the Performing Arts Center at Novato High.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Facilities, Mike Woolard, in just a second, but I am very excited at where we are now in some of these projects. And I wanted to note where we are is the schematic design for those. A lot of work has gone into this, but I wanted to at least focus on what this is. Schematic design is not the final design for these projects. It's the general size, shape, and location of the projects. It is the budget and the schedule for the project, and it's an analysis that we have met the primary objectives of the project. So this basically is that we're going in the right direction. We can set up the budget and move on. We'll move into on these later in the fall when we have final designs before we go out to bid on these projects. We'll bring the final design when we go out to bid, as well as the board will have a final option when they hopefully approve the contracts for construction of these projects. So with that, I will turn it over to Mike Woolard to go over these projects.
Thank you, Yancy. I always break this microphone. Good evening, trustees. Thanks for the opportunity. We're excited. As Yancy mentioned, we have the big new construction projects for the bond program. We're presenting most of them tonight. And it is exciting to talk about new and exciting construction here in the district. Before I begin, I would like to introduce some folks who are going to help me present tonight. I have Kevin McQuarrie from WLC Architects and also Hector Mojica, who've put a lot of time and energy into these two projects here at Novato High. And also have Todd Lee from Greystone West, our construction manager, here as well. And so all the questions you have after I stop talking, we'll direct to them, and we'll be great. Now, what I want to do, if I get this right, turn it on first. All right, works. Is a quick agenda, just show you real quick site location where we're looking to put this particular Performing Arts Center. Give you a little bit of general building information about it, a little background. I also like to touch on the great collaboration we have with the site committee and the site itself. Some of the folks are here tonight, which is good to see. Then turn it over to WLC to go through the schematic design of the actual building, give you some insight into that, and then of course finish with the cost estimate we're at presently and also the construction schedule. And then of course, if it's good with the board, we could answer questions specific to each project after the presentation, or did you want to wait to the end to do questions as well?
I think we'll ask the questions within the project.
Very good. So with that, I would like to show you the proposed site location. It's the highlighted yellow section where the 5 new tennis courts are right now at Novato High School. Just to give you a little background, we did look at a lot of other locations on the high school, maybe more towards the front, but unfortunately those other locations required additional work because we would transplant another building, and as we put in this new building, we'd have to rebuild the building we transplanted, and that would drive the cost up. So we did look at, Hector, I lost track of how many versions we did there at the beginning, but quite a few. And we resided to this one. And they'll get into more details of the benefits of this location, but it is accessible from the back, or the front parking lot, and it works out great with the sloping for the theater building that we're going to construct. So this is where we're proposing to put the Performing Arts Center. And next, this is a little bit about the building. Just in a general sense, it's a little over 20,000 square feet footprint. It is designed for 450 seats in a balcony-style setting. It has all the great spaces of a Performing Arts Center. We have the stage area. We have the front area with a lobby. In this case, we have a unique space as part of the programmatic needs from the site was a gallery space for the Digital Visual Arts program at MSA. It also has the public restrooms, and then we have the backstage support spaces as well, and of course the needed and important support spaces for the space as well. But right now I just want to touch on, we had some great collaboration with the site committee. Principal Matt Baldwin gave us probably 5 or 6 folks on the committee, and then we ended up meeting with most of the MSA department over the couple of meetings we had. A lot of great input, a lot of back and forth. The Schematic Collaborative played a key part of that as well, made a lot of those meetings to talk specifics about performing arts centers, and of course WLC was there providing guidance as well. But just want to let you know it's a very collaborative effort and very successful. We listened to all the needs and requirements of the program, kind of the wants and needs, the have-to-haves and nice-to-haves, and I think we resulted in a really nice schematic design that we're going to show you here. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to WLC, and just do the right arrow button and your slides pop up.
Great. I'll let Hector handle the difficult part here. Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Hogenboom. Again, I'm Kevin McQuarrie. It's wonderful to see you all again. It seems like a lifetime ago that we were having discussions about this whole master plan thing and getting a bond passed and that 50,000 foot level concept. And I'm just thrilled to have been able to be a part of these projects and bring us down to the tabletop now, where it's getting real. And as we move forward here, and as Hector explains it, you'll begin to see how exciting it is. And I'd like to just echo and thank Mike and Yancey and Matt and the whole team for involving and being involved and being enthusiastic and being willing to prioritize and to make compromises, because it starts happening very quickly where we have the big ideas and then it gets real. And I know, as Todd's going to touch on, things, the reality is costing a whole lot more than we thought it would when we started this process. But it's been wonderful, and we're looking forward to helping implement the vision of the master plan. And so I'll let Hector explain what that is.
Thank you, Kevin. So I caught the first part of your meeting, and it's always nice to come to a meeting that actually is a positive and insight on how a district works. And that's been our experience as we've worked with the district staff and the site staff. It's been a great experience, so thank you for the opportunity. So you're probably all familiar with what you see on the screen. That's the nameplate for the high school, Novato High, typified by its red brick. And again, you see like this aerial view and kind of getting a feel for the way that the campus is laid out. It's a single-story campus, finger plan. And so as we zoom in specifically to that location at the tennis courts, what you Mike kind of touched on that, how the site is actually helping enforce that cascading design that's natural to a performing arts building. So what you have is, as you approach the site, as all of you I'm sure you're familiar, you come up to that high end of the parking lot, and that will be part of the entry sequence as you come down into the performing arts building. The performing arts buildings typically, as you know, are tall buildings, so it's right next to the existing gymnasiums, but it's still going to be a little higher, and there's going to be a quality, so when there's an evening performance, that'll be kind of like a light on that hill, kind of, you know, attracting and bringing people to that venue. So they'll proceed down into a lower level courtyard that will transition into a lobby. At the lobby, they'll have opportunity to enter the gallery. That's on that north corner. Restrooms will be at that south corner. Then they would transition into the lower level of the theater. That cross aisle would then be about an equal point down, and then transition to the theater. The actual lowest part of the theater design was at the stage itself, and the associated accessory spaces, the dressing areas, the spaces that would be used by the performers were all approximately level with the area that's behind the gymnasium now, the area that's labeled senior yard. So as you know, a larger floor plan to give you a better idea, again, as Mike pointed out, this is schematic, so we're still looking at various opportunities to maximize the flow and the way that people will experience the building, making sure that it's not only functional for all the people that are going to be using it throughout all the different opportunities for musical events, for performances, but also for the performers who are going to be using it to bring their stage scenes, the musicians and everybody else who might be using it. This is the second level. That would be the balcony level. that would essentially provide a two-level, 2 theaters in one. So if you have a smaller performance, you could actually close off that upper balcony, and it would allow you to have much more of an intimate setting on that lower level. But having that ability to expand it if you did have a larger performance and needed the additional seating.
This is going to be a very unique and exciting feature for a theater of this size. It's something that Schematic Group brought to the discussion, and we had a lot of talk about it as to whether it's going to work and how it's going to work programmatically and cost-wise. And so I think this is going to be, I'm really excited about the way this is going to work out.
The key word that Schematic kept on using was the quality of intimacy, bringing the people forward closer to the performers. This is kind of a section to give you a feel of how everything would be laid out, and again, just emphasizing that balcony relationship. And this is a preliminary idea of how it could look. We really, we wanted to honor the tradition of Novato High, the brick. We've heard some different opportunities, so we're looking at opportunities of using brick, but in a different theme. And again, this is schematic design, so we're still exploring the opportunities. And this is the view that you'd have from the parking lot looking down into the lobby. Looking back, I guess, with the baseball field at your back. So thank you for this opportunity. I think the next part will be up to...
Fun part. How much does this cost? Okay. Thanks, Hector and Kevin. So next is the cost estimate. And before I cause confusion, the bottom line is you see it correctly on this slide. It is $26.9 million or so. That is currently what we had estimated for what you just saw. And what I want to explain at this juncture is we are still recommending moving forward with a $25 million budget. We think that is a very solid budget. And the reason is we believe through the next detailed design, there are some cost savings available with sort of the conservative estimates we've used and some other things we found with some historical and similar projects done in other districts that there's an opportunity to realize some cost savings. But in case we don't, we have identified two items we call options that if we need to pull out to reduce the cost, we can still reach the $25 million if these numbers hold true. Those two options are the orchestra pit, and I'll go back to show you what exactly that is. It is an item that you must do at the beginning, or you cannot come back and add it later. In essence, it is the lowest point. You excavate down to do this pit. It has a mechanical or hydraulic? Mechanical lift that can go up to here or can go up to stage height and be an extension of the stage, but it must be constructed at the beginning, and the reason is the access to the pit is through a door here and a tunnel down goes under, so it's a separate entrance. It's a lot of foundation and earthwork and concrete work to build this, so it'd be really hard to go in, and it's like putting a pool in your house. After you built your house, it'd be very hard to do. So that is an optional item. It is estimated around $850,000. And the other optional item is this gallery space. Up here, it's about 1,000 square feet right now, and that's another $800,000 as well. But again, we are recommending moving forward with all the items in here and believing that we can get some cost savings and still afford those items and still get to the $25 million budget, if that makes sense. So that's what we're asking. So I apologize if I had any confusion by throwing you two different numbers. But currently, just with what we're doing now, wanted to be transparent and let you know what we were at. But again, as Roy mentioned, it's schematic design. It is going from 50,000 to, 10,000 feet or so. And now we're going to really dive down and get into the codes and all the access and all those details and detailed design, and we believe through that we can find that savings and get those two options in there. And we've talked about this at the site committee, and they obviously would like to have everything in there, and we're continuing to work with them. If we ever get to a point where we need to reduce or take one of those out, we would go to this committee, and then we come back to the board and let you know what we're doing and proposing. So that's the explanation of the cost estimate. And the construction schedule is still on track. We are hoping, sorry, not hoping, we are starting with a summer of 2019 right after school is out, which I just heard was, yeah, just the calendar you just approved.
11.
So June 12th, we will be, no, so we will, as soon as school is out, we will definitely start immediately after. The reason is you do all the heavy earthwork and foundation work over the summer, which is the busiest, loudest, and kind of messiest time of a construction project of this magnitude. So we start there in June, and it will continue through the 2019-20 school year, through the summer of 2020 into the 2020-21 school year, and looking to be occupied after the winter break, 1st of January 2021 is the current schedule. We're still on track for that. So with that, we would definitely like to entertain any questions on this particular project, knowing that we will reserve the approval for the end after the last two presentations.
And as we go through, can you just talk about how the impact of existing buildings or whatever's on that space, what will happen to that?
So the tennis courts, we talked to the tennis team, and no, just kidding. Yes, we have to replace the tennis courts. I will go back to the plot plan. We definitely are going to move the tennis courts. Right now, the current idea is to use 2 of the 5. We only need to take down the first 3 tennis courts. The idea is to...
So you'll keep those existing 2 then?
Correct. And you're not going to like this answer with another answer, but right now, we're going to refurbish the old tennis courts, those 3, and use the other 2 to still have 5 to meet the needs.
You need to have 5.
It's not the best solution because it's not all together.
Yeah.
However, we are currently working on sort of the mini master plan for Novato High School. There are a lot of moving pieces. And you'll hear about the STEM building or the science building here in just a second. And we're also working with the impact of that building and the impact to the grounds facility. We also have the JROTC donated facility that needs to have a home. So we need to figure out and come up with a mini master plan. Because what we want to avoid is if I build 5 new tennis courts, say down here, and then in 3-4 years I find out we have to demo and build them somewhere else. We just don't want to waste the money. We want to be smart and efficient, understanding there might be some inefficiencies with a temporary or a couple years of 3 courts in one and 2 courts in another. But that's the current plan right now. And we are currently working in parallel that mini master plan as well with the site and with Greystone and other folks. So we hope to, at a future board meeting, come back and give you some insight into all the moving pieces at Novato High.
Okay, thank you. All right, Trustee Scott and then Trustee Millerick.
So I have a question around when all this construction starts. It'll be summertime, but I'm imagining this is going to take quite a bit of time to construct. Where's all the equipment going to go? I know when we have so many parking spaces in the parking lot, we're using the softball or the baseball field. We're using that for soccer. I mean, where's the big construction stuff going to go?
That's a really good question.
Because I know those students cherish those parking spaces.
I will have 2 seniors at that point in time, and they've already voiced their opinions quite often and frequently about, Dad, I better have a parking space. Right now, the flexible space we have is down here. And we'll go over the details with the science building in just a couple minutes. So we're going to have 2 construction sites sort of at the back end of the Novato campus. And if you look to the right of the softball field, that's an open area right now. That would most likely be the logical place. And of course, the back parking lot will be covered by we'll have to move the portables. I'll get into more details on this, but the portables will move from where they're at into the back parking lot. So the back of campus will most likely be closed. And we use some of that area as a laydown area.
Okay. And my second question is, for the homeowners that are surrounding that, where the construction is going, are they going to be provided with a number to get a hold of somebody on the outside chance somebody's on that campus early, buzzing, making noise, or staying late, buzzing, making noise? I mean, we want to be good neighbors, so I just want to make sure that we're passing out whosever number that needs to be to handle that is handling it.
Great question. We're working on a communications plan. Matter of fact, for this year, we're just doing the re-turfing of the stadium field at Novato High, but we're handing out sort of the periphery of the schoolhouses, the first row that borders Novato High. We're going to do some handouts, mailers to each house to let them know what we're doing, what the scope of the work is, and then some contact information. And we'll do the same on a more robust scale with these projects the next summer. Plan on having some community town hall meetings in case they want to come and learn a little more about it. But we're trying to reach out and get the word out, and obviously have points of contact they can
Okay, that
touch
would be a
base
good
with if they
idea.
have questions.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
Could you go to the 2 slides ahead, I think? Not that one, not that one. Keep going, not that one, that one.
Okay.
Yes. So one of the concerns that I noticed when we went to Hillsborough for their review, we looked at their program, is they spoke a lot about making sure there was load in and load out capacity as they exchanged sets and programs, and the ability to move stuff in and out on a very timely basis, like hours. One show ends at 8 o'clock at night, and the next night there's something else on the stage. How does that work in this?
So we have a loading dock with the existing fire access road that goes through the back of campus there, and we have the loading dock that Yancey's pointing at that goes right into the backstage space, right to the stage.
Okay, so and they can bring in. They had coral shells, large structures that reflect sound, and so you get a natural. So there were big, bulky things. A regular door doesn't work.
No, this is, I believe,
like
a
roll-up
door.
truck, loading dock kind of facility, not like
Correct.
Like we have at Novato High, which is a couple of double doors, which is they said just is not a workable solution at all.
Right. No, I've personally
so that's
seen.
the one thing I learned going to Hillsborough. So and they have more money than we do. I learned that.
2 things. Great question, and yes, I've seen a lot of the set pieces that we currently have at Novato High, and they're rather large, and I'm sure you've seen the Connex boxes, or those big metal containers. They have a lot of other stuff in that as well. But we designed this to specifically be able to back up a big truck down into the loading ramp and
so
offload
if we had to put set storage off campus, I mean, because right now if you wander around on our campuses, we have containers stacked everywhere where sets are being stored in. I don't see a strategy.
Senior Yard's also a potential future development of that area, that kind of space right now that's between the old
where's
gym.
Scenery Yard? I don't see it. Where? Under the,
It's asphalt.
Yeah, if you know, it's a concrete jungle back there.
Yeah, no, I mean, so we need to have a better solution than we have now, and I'd like to make sure we think that through. And I would, this is a request. We have a community member who was involved in building the Terra Linda program, Christina Stroh, and if she's available, I would invite you to walk this through and get her input. She was the architect at what Terra Linda has, and they're satisfied with that, and I would like to take advantage of her expertise if you can find time in her schedule to.
Absolutely, we'll reach out to her.
Put a set of eyes on this and give us some advice. Thank you very much.
Any other board members? Trustee Nell, then Trustee Cooper.
So I'll just ask the 2 questions. One is the gallery space was an option to be removed. If it were removed, would that just be a blank space, or would you turn it into something else?
I'll defer to the architects, but there are definitely options to make that shape a little bit better, not just a hole or something.
Right, so that opportunity, I mean, we're hoping that wouldn't be the reality of the way the project comes out, but there would be architectural solutions of how to treat that corner and finish the design to make it appropriate. But again, our hope is to maintain that space because it was a desired part of the school's program.
So, to be announced. So it'd be if we just wouldn't build anything there.
It won't just be like we cut out that corner and it just stays like that. It would be designed.
Well, I like to have more classroom. I don't know if it was cheaper than a gallery.
Or they might make it outdoor space in.
Okay, the other thing, great job, you guys, so far. But the other thing is, like, this picture, I guess, that shows that side of the building. I'm having elevation issues. And that because I walked up that hill from the locker room to the field, I don't know, maybe 1,000 times or maybe 2,000 times. That's very level right there in this illustration. So I guess I'm having, if that gallery and those classrooms, how are we gonna do that? Are they gonna be lower? Are we gonna, you got me.
That's actually a really good question. I feel that as we've looked at that site location, it's actually the highest part of the parking lot. So at that corner where, sure. Okay, so at that corner, it's at about 57 feet per the topography. And so we're aiming to put the courtyard at about 52. And what that does for us, perfect, thank you. So that corner right there is at about 57. This little walkway right here, that's an existing student pathway, is at about 52, so about a 5-foot change. So ideally, we were imagining having that courtyard lower down, which in one way will make the building not so massive on site, because it's going to be a 35, 40-foot tall facade to deal with the space and the mass of the balcony layout. So it'll help kind of soften the edge, but still allow that openness of the glazing to kind of represent, to the community. So from there, it'll be about 5 foot down. And just to be honest, also, these renderings are artistic representations. They don't necessarily accurately represent all the grade changes on site. We just wanted to give a sense, kind of a feeling for the intent.
So we're gonna figure it out, but are there gonna be doors on that side? I mean, those, I guess what I'm calling, next to the gallery, they look like classrooms to me. I guess I gotta go to a page.
Oh, so along the northern edge of
these guys right there and.
Right, so those spaces.
Is there access from the senior yard?
Right, so that hallway will be at about, we're imagining about 46, which the senior yard is at about 46. Okay. So there would be direct access for students to transition from the back of the gymnasium, that lower area, directly into the spaces that are for the performers, for the musicians, for the staff or the students that are prepping for performance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll figure it out. I mean.
That's about 46, and then this area here would be at about 46.
Okay.
Feet. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah. So you're going to figure it out. It's going to have to be some leveling and changes, but I'm sure it'll work out. So I'm just trying to get a feel for how that was going to mesh with the existing space. So, all right, thanks.
Oh, no problem.
Trustee Cooper.
So my question, kind of, if we can stay on that gallery for a moment, and then I want to morph to the pit, the orchestra pit. So the pit. So you mentioned those two as possible areas where cost savings can occur. Could you talk a little bit about the input from the site, what the value those two are to the site, and?
You want to take that, Matt, just so they can hear it straight from the principal's mouth?
Since you're here, Matt.
Mm-hmm. Since you dressed up and came out.
Good evening, everyone. So the process for this has been great. The input from the entire community, especially our MSA department, has been wonderful. Obviously, the gallery space within itself has been something that has been a huge, not just want, a need for Marin School of the Arts and for the visual art programs. And they've desperately been asking and wanting that. So I think the Marin School of the Arts and Novato High School has been completely aligned and behind the concept of making sure that we produce a space that can highlight and showcase all the amazing things that those students are doing and our teachers are doing. As far as the orchestra pit is concerned, to me, just having gone through this process twice now, this is the third time I've kind of gone through this process with theater in my career, and just we have the unique advantage of having a musical theater program that actually uses live music, and we sell out two more weekends than any other school I've ever seen anywhere, using live music in a musical theater production. So our programmatic needs call for having an orchestra pit. Couple that with the fact that our musical theater program commonly has 40 to 50 kids jumping off stages and jumping all over the place and doing an amazing choreography. If you put those 40 or 50 kids in our programmatic needs on that stage, there's nowhere for these live musicians to be playing. Couple that with the fact that I'm assuming other schools in the district and outside vendors are going to want to come in and use this facility because it's going to be the nicest, most beautiful, spectacular facility in Novato as far as the theater is concerned. Not having an orchestra pit, I think, is, to use a term I've heard here before, educational malpractice. So if we're talking about building a facility for the programmatic needs of our school, not building an orchestra pit is tough for me to swallow. That's just my personal belief. If you're going to do it right, because we can never go back and do it again. That's the one where we've missed our opportunity and our chance. So that being said, I mean, our staff has provided the input. Obviously, we looked at phase 1 and phase 2 and other possibilities in trying to meet the needs of the program. For me, I think this is going to be beautiful and amazing, but it's also, I think, just the start of the process of trying to meet the needs of the program. So I feel like we need the gallery and the orchestra pit. So, but I'm a tough, I'm fighting for everything.
You're obviously biased. So
yeah, of course. I think I've never been around a program so inspiring in my life, and so it's. I want to make sure that we were meeting the needs of our kids and our teachers, and.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. You should sell cars.
Anything else, Tom? Okay, thank you. Trustee Mack.
I'm really excited about this. The first question that I've got is about the gallery. It's kind of along the lines of Trustee Cooper. I support the idea of the visual artists having a place. I think they need a home. My concern is staffing it. I heard, because we had the benefit of seeing this earlier, so we were talking about this already. And I'm hearing that there is really no commitment to keep it open during performance for theater or musical theater or jazz. And to me, it's critical that be an open space when the building is being used for other purposes. So I'd like to hear from the site plans for making sure that is open to everybody during times it's not specific to visual arts, to staff it effectively, or find a way to secure it so that when it's open, it can be, people can, go through there on their way into the theater.
We've had some robust discussions at the site committee meetings about that very thing, and go back to kind of what Yancy was saying. We've talked about it. We know there are issues to resolve. At this point in the design, it's identified, but I don't have an answer for you tonight. But definitely work with the program at the school site to figure out the best use of that space and to maximize the use of that space, which is, I think, the key point. Obviously, it's open for a lot of performances in the theater part of it. Why not have something that showcases the rest of the arts program?
I guess I'll just say this. I really don't want to see that thing locked up except for 1 hour a week when someone can come in and open it up. It's the last thing I want to see. I want to see it opened up almost 100% of the time. When the front doors are open, I want that open.
Noted. We will continue to work on it.
I know that's more of possibly a Matt issue, but just want to make sure that happens. Then the scenery yard, I guess there's a lot of TBD in that in terms of, coverage, security, how's it going to look? Is it going to be just a cyclone fence with a piece of aluminum over it, corrugated aluminum? I'd like to get more understanding of that. We already talked about the tennis courts. I'm not a big fan of separating them, but if it's a temporary solution, okay. But I think long-term, we owe it to the tennis program for the coach to be able to stand in one place and coach their teams and not have to shuttle back and forth. And to that end, I think ROTC's home on those 2 tennis courts is perfect. But that's down the road. But would love to see for us to give ROTC a permanent home right there. Last but not least, I'm still 50-50 on the pit. Having a student in theater arts, not musical theater, but I did see a lot of performances, and while I did see some with live music, they're able to make it work in that small, tiny little space. And it's just more the price tag. If the price tag wasn't so substantial, I'd say no problem. But it is a big chunk of money, and that money could be used to do something like making the old gym into something that's truly a secondary performance space, which it is not now. Something that makes it more sound capable. And personally for me, I would see that money better spent in making that effort, getting the old gym to be something that's functional in terms of acoustics, and, well, at a minimum, just the acoustics. So that's my take.
All right, anybody else? Trustee Nell.
In response to Matt's comments, when I brought up the gallery issue, I was really just trying to get into the levels. It's music to my ears when I hear an administrator say, "Let's do it right," and let's do it, based on what the programs need. So I heard staff say that they were going to move ahead with this plan on a $25 million original budget. So we should go for it until we reach such a point where we have to make those harder decisions is where I'm at. And so again, my comment on the gallery issue was more about the levels, not about getting rid of it or making it a non-option. So for right now, I support the plan as presented. I think we need to, I'd like to see us go further.
Trustee Miller.
I'd like to see your planning continue, including the orchestra pit. If that becomes a optional item at some point, we can have that conversation, but I want to make sure that you bring the full choice forward, so that you're continuing to do that work.
Moving
and
forward.
then if we have to make tough decisions, then we can make them in the future.
All right, so that we've sort of talked this one through. We'll come back to it and do the approval, but let's keep moving forward. The next item is the science building at Novato High, which we were originally calling the STEM building, and thank you, Trustee Mack, for getting that changed. And I think you're right on with that. So it's now the science building, unless there's a much more fancier name. I'm not
Actually,
sure.
we were
There was
talking
something
about
in the
that,
report,
and
I think.
the Center for the Sciences
Yeah,
has
that's it.
now been proposed as a official name as we refer to this facility.
Science building.
Oh, good evening again, trustees. Very similar to what we just talked about with the Performing Arts Center, the same agenda and sort of layout for the meeting for this as well. Just to save time, I'll jump right into the site. As you probably saw from the other site plan, the blue circle, highlighted circle, is the proposed site for the Center for the Sciences building here at Novato High School. Again, much similar to the Performing Arts Center, we looked at other locations around campus, and due to increased budgets, we came back to this site. And obviously, the first thing we need to do is move the temporary modular classrooms, where I believe the math department now resides. Again, we moved those first into the back parking lot by the 3 tennis courts and the softball field. Temporarily relocate them for the school year, and then we would demo that plot, and also we would move grounds away since the proposed site plan takes up half of their space. And that goes back to what I mentioned before about it's kind of the domino thing where you move one piece and you hit another piece. So, and we're coming back at a future board meeting to talk about where that would go. Didn't want to convolute the conversation today with that, but definitely it'd be moving grounds off of Novato High, taking that space and repurposing it for the Center for the Sciences building. So with that quick overview, this building is again a little over 20,000 gross square feet. Like to mention, I think initially when we were talking about this, it was proposed as a 5 classroom, 5 lab style building. Due to class loading and class sizes and the number of classes per day in each of the science classes, it needed to be 10 lecture lab rooms, which I'm letting you know this because that increased the square footage requirement of the overall building. Classroom is 960, I believe, the average classroom size, and we're now looking at 10 lecture lab rooms between 1,200 and 1,300 square feet. So that added a little bit to the size of the building and added a little bit to the budget at the end. But generally for Novato High, it's 4 rooms for the general sciences and biologies, 3 rooms dedicated for chemistry, and 3 rooms for engineering and physics. Again, support spaces for staff prep and for student demonstrations, and the normal other support spaces for the building itself. Again, want to impress how collaborative we worked with the site and the site committee. Again, Matt got a nice group of folks together from the science department, and we met a few times and got some really great input from them and worked with them and tried to think outside the box of what we could do with this building to increase flexibility. And that's, I think, was the theme for this particular schematic design was how flexible can we make this classrooms. It's not your traditional chemistry room. You walk in, you got your hard-wired tables, you know, in the middle of your room, and it's this giant room. Trying to make sure, you know, push the sinks to the side, push the gas and that to the side, get flexible furniture in there, and just make these very flexible so that if you needed to teach another class, you could. If you want to teach a biology class and a chemistry class, you could make that work. So that was the theme behind this. And so I turn it over to Hector and Kevin to get into the layout. You'll see how this flexibility really comes through. So with that, turn it over to you, Hector, and give you there you go.
So again, you know, it's as we worked with the staff, they definitely had a vision for the way they wanted to approach this building. And it's interesting now that when you look at the way that the science program functions, they're spread out throughout the entire campus. And they have supply rooms that are spread out throughout the campus. So the excitement that we felt, that we were hoping to dialogue with and to address, was trying to centralize the way that their programs worked. We found a site on a location on site that allowed to have this 10 classroom building happen, with an emphasis on a collaborative space that allowed a synergy to happen between the programs. They don't have a full-out STEM program, but the intent, well, they do for their engineering and physics department, but the intent is to provide a space that has the flexibility to allow them to approach that with more flexibility and with more energy. So as you see on the site layout, the students would approach the building from that northern edge. This would be like the main access from the existing campus. And the way that we did the grouping, just functionally for the way that the staff works together and the ability to share equipment, on the north end, you have all the general science and biology classrooms. That allows them, you know, to be, you know, next door to provide to address some of the equipment they might be able to share. On the south end, you have the grouping of 3 chemistry classrooms. And then in between there would be a shared demo science space. There would be a single hood in that space that would allow them to have shared presentations to groups of students. The space is about 600, a little over 600 square feet, so over 3/4 the size of a normal classroom. And the students, there's a large peninsula in the middle that we've kind of talked to how that would work for them. So they could potentially have students come in there, do a presentation, show the experiment for the day. They would also, the staff would also be able to use that as a central clearinghouse for all the equipment that they don't use on a regular basis. So if they were teaching a section that required specific and specialized equipment, they could enter that space, prep their carts for the for that section of whatever they'll be studying, and then take it back into their classrooms for that section. On the eastern end, there's the grouping of the 3 engineering physics classrooms. And with them, they actually have a clean workroom, which would also be a demo space. It's interesting because in talking to their engineering teacher, they do everything from textiles to, they have a laser cutter, they do 3D printing, they do fine electronics. So there's a different demand and a different requirement for some of the other activities they might do, where they might light things on fire or use a grinder or use a drill press and that sort of activity. So that area that's actually related to the interior of the building, but allow that flexibility to have a cleaner space. But the vision is to have both the science demo space and the engineering demo space to be glazed. So there'd be permeability so the students, as they're walking by, can see other students working on projects, making things, using the 3D printer. And to kind of add that energy and excitement for them to want to do the same thing. Surrounding the building itself, there was an opportunity to have learning spaces or outdoor learning courtyards that would be an extension of those interior classrooms, and hopefully well integrated with roll-up doors that we'll show later on. Here's a larger view. The restrooms would be there on the south end. Some of the equipment that was definitely expected and was requested by the staff themselves were, if you notice in this image, there's the coiled down power supply that allows flexibility for wherever power might be used. Especially that's needed in a space that doesn't have the built-in peninsulas. And if you notice in this view also, there's a rolling instructor cart that has the opportunity to move it about and the flexibility to put it in a situation to help instruct the students better. This is another opportunity to have the flexibility of more intensive learning equipment, but also flexible to be rolled and to be placed in the location that would work best for whatever is being shown. Learning surfaces, this would be in the collaborative hallway. There'd be this opportunity to have floor-to-ceiling whiteboards that would not only be to write on, but also be surfaces that are safe to put sticky pads on or to put sticky material on. This is the first image from looking from towards the north, towards I guess the maintenance yard would be further to the east, and that road you see would be the route to get to the back parking lot. And as we rotate around, at this point the softball field would be at your back. Lower at eye level, you can see kind of the suggestion of the route from the main campus and that main entry point that would allow students to go into the learning corridor.
Could you point out where the engineering portion is?
Sure.
Just the wide area in the back, right?
Right there to your right.
Right, that's what I thought.
This grouping of classrooms
Okay.
here. This would be the collaborative hallway.
And then the chemistry and the biology.
Right, so this would be the chemistry. These are the, potentially to have roll-up doors that would
Yep.
allow a better connection to the exterior. As we circle around the building.
Great, thank you.
No problem. This is the backside, so the classrooms that you're looking at now would be the bio, general science. So this would be the courtyard that they'd have an opportunity to utilize for planting or for experiments. And this is the rear entry into that cross aisle that would cross the clean workroom. And this is looking out from one of the classrooms, out through one of the glazed walls. Thank you so much.
So with that, get into the cost estimate real quick. Currently, we're at $13,749,312 is the estimate based on what you just saw for that layout and square footage. And that is what we are recommending moving forward from schematic design into the detailed design as the project budget. And schedule is a little bit less than the Performing Arts Center. It is the same start as soon as school year is out in the summer of 19. We start with the big earthwork movement over that summer. It continues through that school year of 19 and 20, and it finishes by the start of school year of 2020. Hope right before the start of school in August. Look to be done and have beneficial occupancy before the school year starts. So about a 14-month construction window. And with that, we are happy to entertain any questions.
Trustee Scott?
Okay, so I'm curious, has there been a rendering that's been done that is going to show the entire campus with all of the programs and where they're at? I'm looking for flow on the campus to make sure that, you know, the theater program's over here, the science is over here, other classes are over here. I'm just looking for the flow.
We have not done that, but we can. Again, as
I'm just curious. I mean, if I'm a student and I'm running around, I mean, I don't know. I just want to make sure that we've looked at that 30,000 feet up, and if I don't know, it's just flow for me. I'm just curious. Is we're gonna have science over here, is MSA gonna be over here, but then also over here where they're already, I mean, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out logistics. Just flow on the campus for the students.
I know, sorry, he was telling me, the Schematic Collaborative did look at it from the theater arts program perspective. I know for the performing arts that was big. And then we have looked at it from a flow point, but I think if I understand your concern, you'd like to see sort of this with the new
Well, I'm just
facilities
thinking
on it.
clusters in terms of just flow for the students. I mean, if you've got a class over here and then you've got to get over
Well,
here.
I
and
do
then-
know the current science is,
There you go.
please correct me if I'm wrong on that, but as I understand it, these are science classrooms.
Right. Okay. So, but are they moving?
So the science building would be here, so these would move from here to kind of the same area on campus that they're currently at.
Okay.
Performing arts a little bit different. I mean, it's all right up here now.
Yeah.
But a lot of the theater classes.
I don't know. Help me out with the campus. I mean, I'm familiar with the campus, but I'm just I'm just looking for flow.
This is science to here, so this is all science, and there's 2604 is science, and actually 2601 is science.
So if anything, the sciences get more closely grouped than they are now, and the
Okay.
math department goes from tightly grouped and portables to a little bit spread out in the currently rooms occupied by the science department.
Oh, so
They
the
kinda do a
math,
swap.
the math is gonna go
Math and
into-
science pretty much
That's
do
what
a
was my
swap.
question, okay.
Okay.
All right. Trustee Aguila?
I still would like to see an overlay on it.
Well, they have a team like a mini master plan of Novato High,
We-
so
we do,
that's what
and-
they're gonna
and
bring
we'll
back.
incorporate
Okay, all right.
You're
good.
right, we need to see the.
It's
where
not making
each
sense to me.
Thing is. So trustee Aguila and then trustee Millerick.
Yeah.
And then trustee Mack.
Thank you. This looks great. To me, I'm looking for safety, and I'm wondering if I'm assuming that we are looking at, fireproof, earthquake-proofs, floods, and recently the windows. Will it be like terrorist-proof and things like that? Have we?
I don't mean to laugh.
No, it's important.
Yes, I mean, are we putting in bulletproof glass? No, that.
And we have gotten a lot of
Way
emails
too
regarding
costly.
that.
But
And I
there are-
believe I've sent our superintendent an email regarding that.
Sure.
Because just the safety of our students is what would be important. But can you talk about that, the windows,
Well, obviously, from the designs, the architects, some of the renderings, a lot of windows, a lot of
It's
natural
not
light.
obvious to
well,
me.
I'm sorry.
To me.
So we're looking, compared to what we have now, put in a lot more windows. Let me go back to one of the renderings. But there are materials and stuff you can use. So, like I said, they won't be bulletproof. Glass, for instance, when you're looking at windows, but you do have reflective materials on the outside. We'll probably use that for thermal. Because the backside of campus gets a lot of afternoon sun will come in this way, so we need to, you won't have clear, transparent glass. You could do coverings, you could do a lot of material things so you can't see it in the classrooms, but the light still gets in, and things of that nature. But we definitely, as we move through the design, that safety student safety is in the forefront, and we'll incorporate that where we can to make sure that it's a safe environment as well.
Because, and if you can look at what some school districts are doing now with protecting themselves from
And I know
all those
WLC
incidents.
is constructed a lot.
There's some things that maybe, I'm sure there's a list of things that we can adopt.
Trustee Millerick.
Thank you. So the art program that we've talked about is well matured, and the principal, as Matt has said, is he hasn't seen a program that excites him as much in his career as that program, the MSA program. That makes sense to me. When I start looking at this, I start getting confused. I think I'm with Trustee Scott. Could you go back to sort of the overall campus? Because I don't quite grasp this STEM program on Novato High. I don't get the program view, so I want to ask you a couple of points. That's perfect. So so a couple of pointed questions, and maybe Matt has to answer these. You circled the math
Yes.
all classrooms in blue, and they're going away. And you said temporarily out in the middle of the ball field.
No, the parking lot, the back.
Oh, in the parking lot, out in the middle of, okay. Oh, okay, good. So you lose the parking space in the teachers' park
Correct.
out on the street someplace.
I'm not going to be a popular person.
Yeah, you're not. You're right. You got that right. So where's the math classes going to end up finally? Because after you take them out of the parking lot, are you going to keep them and move them someplace else, or?
Yes, the goal of this also is to get rid of the 9 portable classrooms we have now that are circled in blue.
Yeah.
Get rid of those buildings because they're pretty much at the end of their service life and they're meant to be temporary.
Maybe. We got some when we're shaped in them.
So the goal is to, where the current science department classes are, they go to the new building and we remodel those rooms to put the math department back into permanent classrooms on campus.
Okay, so just to be clear, the math students that are in the buildings that are circled in blue.
Correct.
Those buildings are going to disappear completely, and those math students are going to be in what buildings? Point to them.
Well, initially, they were retrofitting these classrooms to be math classrooms or any continuity classroom.
Without specialty plumbing, just teaching okay?
Yes. So theoretically, we could put the math teachers in those classrooms, but I kind of like what Kevin just made a good point that it's also a good time to just rethink everything.
Well, I think that's where I'm going. I think I'm going to end up agreeing with Kevin and Shelley here in a minute. Yeah. But the current plan that you're presenting to us tonight is those math students end up in that row of current science classrooms. Okay, got that. So I know where the math students are going. Now tell me what's going in the building in blue, the new building you're putting in there. Who's going in that building? Is it the not just STEM? Give me the specific programs. Is it the wood shop? Is it the makerspace program?
It's all our biology classes.
All the biology classes.
Physics and making things.
Physics. Well, there's physics. I know the physics class. But is it the makerspace lab as well?
So we have our biology is going in the 4 biology classrooms.
Okay.
We have the 3 chemistry classrooms, which are physical science. They could be AP, environmental science later, whatever. I mean, they're all maneuverable. You can do.
I mean, I'm asking specific questions. Are the makerspace that's currently in the wood shop, where's it going?
Nowhere. That's product design. So the design center is staying where it is.
Okay. Because that wasn't clear to me. I thought the light blue rooms on this picture were going to be where makerspace is going, because I heard about 3D printers.
So we have right now we have 3 programs. We have product design, we have physics and making things, we have physics, and we have AP physics. And so those 3 teachers will go into the engineering space to teach those classes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you also have Photoshop, the Adobe Suite program. You've got a whole studio of that, which I think is partly in what used to be the old machine shop and partly someplace else. I haven't been on. I remember walking into the room, but I can't tell you which building it was in. It's a bunch of high-end Mac computers with.
We have 2 classrooms that have that. We have Howard Gersh's classroom. And then we have Peter Ornstein's classroom. Yeah. But Peter's class is used for a lot of different things. But
is that going to be relocated here? Are all those Macs coming here?
No.
Okay, so I thought that would be, I mean, I'm in the computer business, STEM means computers to me. So I assume when you said this was a STEM center.
It's a science.
That's why we're trying to get away from STEM.
It's not STEM.
It's Center for the Sciences.
Okay, so I'm confused. So the net of this is I'm confused about your proposal for the campus. I don't get it. I'm with Shelley. I don't get it. Okay. So I want somebody to lay out the programmatic objectives of why we're going to spend $13 million, because it looks to me like we're going to swap science for math and math for science, and it's going to cost us $13 million, and I don't see why we'd spend 10 cents to do that right now. I mean, obviously you guys do, but I don't get it. It looks to me like a lot of churn and not a lot more program.
Okay, we can.
So I need help.
Okay, we can.
I don't agree with anything I see here.
Okay, we can do a site plan to definitely show you what goes where. But again, the goal is to get rid of 9 portable classrooms on campus now.
Ross, it might behoove you to make a walkthrough over there, and maybe schedule something where any of us could do a walkthrough and see the layout, and that way maybe visual that way. Okay.
I'm happy to go do that. I'm just saying right now I need to do
Yeah,
that.
you're frustrated and not understanding.
I'm $13 million frustrated.
Yeah. No, it is changed to, it was a STEM building, they were calling it. It's now, and Trustee Mack had a good point, it's not STEM, it's science. And that's what they're gonna
So
move
Matt,
to.
can I find a time that works for you and we'll get on a phone call and get together?
Absolutely. I'll just say that, when we went through the process of the bond facility master plan, this was number 2 right behind the Performing Arts Center for our community. All the stakeholders, the students, the staff, the community, everyone said that they wanted an upgrade to the science facilities because they were so outdated. And because basically where we're going with College of Career Readiness, we have to have facilities to match the programs that we might not necessarily have currently, but that we want to attain to.
So I'm asking for more information. So
I will
let's
absolutely
get together and do it.
I would love to walk you around and,
Yeah,
and we can see it. I'll take you to the math portables.
And John.
I've been in the math portables.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything to the conversation in regards to? Okay, thanks. All right, any, Trustee Mack, yes.
I'll just speak to my understanding, maybe it'll help. The way I see it, we have 9 temporary classrooms that are at the end of their life that need to go away. We need to replace them. We have a science wing that is outdated, that needs to be upgraded. I'm sure Mr. Dick would agree to that. What we are doing is we're swapping out 9 old, end-of-life portable classrooms for a complete building with upgrading the science wing while we're at it, and then we're going to move the math classes into the old classrooms. Just for me, though, to complete that vision, I want to ensure that this $13 million budget, that includes refurbing the old science classrooms to become math classrooms?
It does not.
Okay.
We just paid money to redo
somewhere else
some
it
of
probably
those.
does.
Not
I
too
get
many
that.
years ago, exactly.
But I think we need to, I think we need to make that part of this budget. And
No, I absolutely agree, but we have some other ideas of
okay.
how to.
Okay. It's late. We'll tackle that. I mean, I get this, and I had another question, but go ahead.
Oh.
No, well, go ahead. It's a separate question.
No, in terms of rehabbing those classroom, it is another project in their facilities master plan is to make collaborative classrooms, 21st century collaborative classrooms. But to turn a lot of the spaces into usable, they actually have had some upgrades over, and there's not a large cost to putting in new, carpeting or flooring, and changing out a couple of things. That is not the significant cost. The significant cost would be the other project that's in the facilities master plan for turning those into larger collaborative classrooms. And so the board would have to take action on that. But you're not looking at significant costs to take out, put in some new flooring. We do that in some of the classrooms now when, at one of the high schools, we did it this summer when we needed to move ROTC and MBI to do those kind of things. We can update and, refurbish, a small refurbish in order to do lots of classes.
And so just to be clear, the plan is to perform those smaller tasks in line with the timing of the science building going online.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
it would likely
kids
be
walk
done
into
in the
school,
summer of 20.
Yeah, so walk into school in the fall of 20, we're going to have a science wing ready to go, and we're going to have the math classes ready to go.
Ready to go. They need to because we don't have the additional space needed.
Then the other question I have is, obviously this design requires a whole bunch of new furniture.
Yes.
Is that part of this budget?
Yes. FF&E is a
Okay, and then,
Machines.
yeah, that's it. So, yeah, because a lot of what you just showed has a lot of really cool furniture. Want to make sure that's part of the equation.
I could tell you the exact number here in a second.
Any other comments? We're good. We'll move on to the next one, which
Thank
is
you.
the Performing Arts Center at San Marin.
Okay. This one's going to be fun.
Trifecta of presentations tonight. All right.
Well
Last-
done in giving us the documents that you provided are good. It's what
Okay.
we need. All the different ideas and the full scale of the campus and everything you've included has been perfect.
Thank you. So the last presentation tonight is a request to the board to develop a new option for the San Marin Performing Arts Center. What I'm going to do is go through a short slide presentation, and as QKA, the architects that we have on this project at San Marin High School, along with Todd from Greystone and in the site committee that we've worked with at San Marin High School. Some are here. Thank you for coming. We met a lot. We got the programmatic needs, and we looked at the renovation of the existing Performing Arts Center, the octagon-shaped, originally constructed as a cafeteria/student center, converted to a Performing Arts Center along the way. So what I'd like to go over is some renovation restrictions, some things we found out about that facility, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're up against, and then walk you through the two renovation options we did develop with the costs associated with that, and then why we're coming to you now with a new construction option, and then how we'd like to proceed. So again, we're talking about the existing Performing Arts Center, the octagon-shaped building there in the green circle, kind of in the middle of campus. And some of the restrictions we found as we got into the schematic design, again, it's a pretty unique shape for any building on a school campus. I've seen them purposely built as a theater in the round, which they were great for, but as far as other uses, not so much. Again, originally constructed as a cafeteria. It's got a low ceilings, low perimeter ceilings, and a high center, so very awkward space to deal with, not very conducive to a traditional theater. And we did find out it's a pre-tension structure, which basically means you can't do anything to the foundation, you can't put extra loads on the beams. It's designed unto itself to be stable with itself, and you can't touch the structure without messing up the balance of the building itself in a nutshell. So very restrictive for us as far as renovation options. We also ran into the structural wall rule, which you touch a certain percentage, you trigger seismic upgrades for the whole facility, which the age that this was built, that would be quite expensive for us to add additional things. And again, you're looking at a building that's now 40 plus years old and getting near the end of its original service life after we've converted its use from student center cafeteria to a performing arts center. So as we got into these renovations, we found a few more restrictions than we anticipated. So with that, we went into the first renovation option. We got all the programmatic needs from the site committee, and we basically went down and developed an option that met all of these things. It actually expanded the current square footage that we had in the existing shape. Basically, it utilized all of the, if you can think of the roof extends out quite a bit. One of the octagon wedges, it already had been bumped out, and that's where I think a lot of storage is for the costumes and whatnot. It's doing that in some other of those wedges, which was how you expand the square footage. But if you think about it, it's 7 feet tall at the low end, and it goes up to like 12 feet. So it's a weird shaped space. It's not the best space, but it is additional space. And then when we got through this option with those restrictions I just talked about, we found out that cost $8.1 million. Just to refresh your memory, we last talked to you, we were talking about $5 million, which is double what we originally had, almost double from the 2.8 in the facilities master plan. So as you can see, significant increase in cost. So with that, we thought, okay, maybe not the best option for the cost. Let's see what we can do to get this cost down. So we went into, this is option one, just a visual sketch of how we expanded the spaces. The orientation's still the same. The stage is bigger. The restrooms we added are outside. There's student restrooms inside. It's very good flow, gives a lot of things it doesn't have now, but at an $8.1 million price tag. So moving on to option 2, we still maintain the seat capacity, we reduced the stage area, still had the control booth, made some square footage smaller, took out the restrooms outside and the student restrooms inside, and just kind of reduced the space. With this option, it still was expensive and came in at $6.5 million. And just to note, this option does not mean all the programmatic needs that the committee came up with. So at this point, we thought, wow, this is pretty expensive. What's it cost to demo this and build new? So based on some project at, what district? Okay. Right, so current projects going on are ones they just completed. They have some very recent cost per square foot figures, and we went ahead and developed, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is the drawing sketch of the second option, which you can see it's reduced from the first one. Sorry. And so the new construction option allows us to build the same seat capacity theater from scratch that basically is designed as a theater, so it looks very similar to what we just saw with the Novato Performing Arts Center. Rectangular shaped, you come into the lobby and the front spaces, you go down into the audience, into the stage, and you go to backstage sports spaces. Exactly. Getting to that. So I just want to let you know, so based on the square footage, and I'll show you, and Trustee Scott's already shown me the diagram that's in your packet that has the red line drawing on it. That is basically a rough outline of the square footage we would need to build new at San Marin, and that priced out with a cost per square foot is $7.25 million. And basically this is one of the projects Todd was talking about that they just completed. It's the building that they built slightly bigger than what we need, but just to give you an idea, that would be the size. It's roughly 60 feet by 130 feet, about 8,000 square feet gross. Gets about 200 to 250 seats in there, but it designs a performing arts center the way you would build it from scratch instead of renovating an existing unique shaped building that we currently have. So at this point, we wanted to bring back to the board, again, not a schematic design level. This is doing some number comparison, but we're at that decision point where two options for very costly renovations to a 40-plus-year-old building, or to come build new where it fit. And this is just an elevation of the same building. Again, you would have that height you need in a theater throughout versus the height restrictions we currently have. Again, the red outline is what we were just looking at. So the recommendation we're looking for, we're coming forward with to get some guidance from the board is building new option falls in between the two renovation options, and the advantage is you're building a new building designed and built as a true performing arts facility, not a modified cafeteria. And you can easily put it and orient it in many different, we have many different options on the current footprint to take out the existing one and put this one in its place. It would fit in a couple different variations. So, and again, we didn't get very detailed. We just did the cost comparison and felt that from an engineering and just efficiency perspective, it makes sense when you're talking this kind of money on a very old building. It makes sense to do the new construction and get the facility that you need that will last another 50 years. So at this point, I'd love to entertain any questions.
President Butler, could we hear from some of the staff
Yes,
members who are here?
absolutely. Linda?
Please, go on up. And while she's walking up, we did
Linda and Mike.
Have some good meetings
Molly.
with the site committee, and we did run this by them as well before we came to you to see what their reaction was, and I'll let them explain their thoughts. So we had Linda Kilsenberry and Emily Gates. And
I know, I just want to hear it.
Well, we're real excited about this third option because we think it's really the best answer. And we said this last year, but now, you know, we have Yancey and Mike and the engineers and everybody behind us because they've gone in and seen the space and they know what we need and how wonderful our program is, equally as wonderful as Novato High. And so with that, I really hope that you choose this new option, because it makes a lot of sense. And it answers so many of our needs. We have many success stories, but we don't need to go into all those. And I'd like to turn it over to Em and then have Mike say a few words.
I just would agree that we have needs just like everybody else does. And I'm all for Novato High getting a great performing arts center, but I think we need something. I feel like when we keep saying that equity is what this district is about, but it doesn't feel that way sometimes, because I've made a list of some of our graduates that I'd love to just let you see. It's not, I mean, I know we're considered the STEM school and there's considered the art school, but I kind of think that's a misnomer based on results. And I would love to see this go forward, and I mean, we've doctored this student center up so many ways, it's pathetic. I mean, we've raised money, we've done everything we can to make it a usable space. And right now, I just came from a rehearsal. We opened Legally Blonde on Friday, and one of our former students who was in the original Broadway production is coming and doing a workshop with our kids on Saturday for that. And we have 35 kids in the cast, about 20 on tech, and about 10 in orchestra, or maybe there's 12. I can't remember how many are in orchestra. And we have 2 musicals a year and 2 drama productions a year. And it would be nice to have a big theater that everybody could use, but there's logistically, that's just not going to work. There's too many things going on. Our facility is constantly busy, and everybody wants to use it, and there's no more time to put the things in there. So I really hope that
we do a calendar meeting in May to just set our agenda for the year, and it's used all the time, every weekend, it's.
We needed an extra dance rehearsal, and we had to see if we could possibly use the mini gym for a while, but wrestling wasn't, it's just a constant struggle to try to get enough space for all the things that we do.
And now it's my classroom as well, because they took my classroom away. So drama meets in the student center, which is fine, we've worked it out, but, it's been an adjustment issue. So
I'm just going to give you this, just to show you that we've had a lot of people that have gone through this, and we're not the art school, but we've certainly done a lot of arts.
Thank you, Emily.
Here's another one. I don't know if drama's included in that, so this is mine. I'm sorry, I just have one of those, but.
Okay. And I want to thank you so much for having us here tonight. Dr. Sims really wanted to be here, but he's actually on a WASC visiting team right now, so that's where he is. So thank you very much. I think Emily and Linda really said it all. I've been at the school for 12 years. The excitement I've seen out of them and the kids has been, this whole project, the bond has really kind of been a bolt of energy through the performing arts program at San Marin, a lot of excitement going on. And like Trustee Mack was saying as well, that it's going to be a school facility. It won't just be for the performing arts. It'll be a shared facility for all to enjoy in our community.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, Trustee Millerick.
It doesn't surprise me to discover that a 40-year-old building has problems. It doesn't surprise me. I went on campus after we lost one of the buildings to a fire 20 years ago in the back of that campus. And if you look the amount of reinforcing iron that was in the concrete, it was like almost non-existent. I think if somebody looks at those set of plans, and if we get triggered to earthquake standards to modify any of that building, we'll discover that the only thing left to do is jackhammer the whole thing down and start again, because the standards in 1970 for structural were nowhere near the standards that are held today. That we're coming to the conclusion that the least cost solution to meet the requirements of the program is a new building does not surprise me at all. So I'm perfect. I was expecting that this point may come, and here we are. So, you know, I think we need to have a conversation. I mean, clearly, there's an overall budget discussion about the bond measure and how everything fits. That's a different conversation. But renovating for more money, renovating a 40-year-old building as opposed to building a less expensive new building just seems like, on the face of it, a technical, easy to make decision.
Anybody else? Trustee Mack?
I agree with Trustee Millerick. This is opening the door down the road to further budget discussions, especially at the middle school level. I'm seeing some buildings there that probably, due to these increases, probably aren't going to happen, but I get it. This is our marquee. Our high schools are very important to our district. We need to support those programs, and we need to do it right. And you know, they serve the most kids in our district as well. So I think we need to put our money in where we get the biggest bang for our buck. Unfortunately, we just don't have as many bucks as we wish. Ultimately, I think our real wish list probably was more like $1 billion, but we're less than a quarter of that. So here we are. So I support this, but at the same time, I think we're going to have to do some real tough decision making in the next round, especially you know, below the high school level.
Trustee Nell?
So, I just want to thank the staff for you know, trying, you know, working as hard as they did on the options, trying to come up with a plan. The realities obviously kept presenting themselves, and you guys had, you know, went back to the drawing board several times. So I respect that. That's why it's an easy decision for me, because we don't have a choice. It's gotten, for me, it's because it's got to that point. I believe the expression is, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. I don't know if anybody's ever heard that one, but a little bit of the Midwestern country in me, I suppose, but you can't do it. You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. So we're not going to do it either. So I appreciate the plan, and I'm going to support we go ahead with that new option.
Anybody else? Trustee Scott and then Trustee Cooper.
For me, it just makes sense to have new construction. I mean, my worry with a 40-year-old building is, you know, we put over $8 million into it, and because it's 40 years old, we're going to have other problems moving down the road. And because it is so old, we could open it up and find out, guess what, it's going to be 10 because we need to fix this, this, and this. So I would just assume to tear the baby down and build new and build what the site wants. Make it useful for them so that, you know, their program is, you know, operating on all cylinders, and they have the space in the room that they need. So I'm for building new.
Trustee Cooper?
Yeah, I think that this is definitely a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for the users. It's a win-win for us. We're getting rid of a 40-year-old building, which has obvious limitations by its size, construction style, and et cetera. The list goes on. And we're building a building, if we do it right, that's going to be here another 50 years. So I think it's exciting. So it's overdue. So.
And just a really quick suggestion to the folks who currently occupy that building: when it comes time, if we approve this, to tear it down, save remnants. Great fundraiser to sell those things. Mm-hmm. Just like when the wall came down, little chips.
We're gonna sell folding chairs.
Chairs, concrete chips with a little commemoration of it. I mean, heck, I'd buy one, class of '80. So
we'll keep the Emily Gates Center, or Emily Gates
just remnants.
Sign. We gotta keep that.
Yeah. Anyway, it'd be a good fundraiser, I believe.
All right, so let's. You want to add anything else?
Butler, how do you want me to recap?
Let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
To the first item. I think we're doing good
Novato
here.
High School Performing Arts Center.
So let's go back to the Performing Arts Center at Novato High. I didn't hear too much of a. Yes.
So before we're going to go through these and consider them, I'm prepared to do that. But we've heard this evening, and we've talked before, that San Marin is the STEM school and Novato High is the Performing Arts School. We've heard that, but I don't see a STEM project cost anywhere in what we're discussing. I guess it's in the future.
Yes.
But we are talking
Coming.
about a STEM or science program at Nevada High, so I continue to be concerned that we are advancing projects at Nevada High, particularly the science building, without being clear about the cost for what it's going to cost to build a STEM center at San Marin. So while I'll support these measures, I am concerned that our whole program needs to be retooled and get us back in alignment with the stated goals we told the community and advance the STEM work at San Marin.
That's coming forward on the next meeting. So that,
Okay, well, then maybe
they
my
wanted
answer
to
is
bring,
yeah,
they
okay.
wanted to bring the performing arts for San Marin because it's just approving the new construction options
I got that.
and not schematic. And so next meeting will be schematic for the performing arts for San Marin and schematic for the STEM building.
At San Marin.
At San Marin.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Am I right?
That helped.
Correct. We split them up because I didn't think you wanted to hear me talk for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So
there's
a lot of.
Yeah. It's
So-
going to happen, what you're looking for.
Exciting as I am. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to Nevada High. This is approving the schematic design, project schedule, and project cost estimate for the Performing Arts Center at Nevada High.
Madam President, I'm prepared to move on that, to accept the recommendation.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a first by trustee Nell, a second by trustee Aguila.
Question?
Yes, trustee Nell.
Sorry.
Question? No?
Sorry.
Fine.
Just to be clear, are we approving the orchestra pit now, or are we putting that off till later?
We are moving forward with the 26 million in change, which includes the orchestra pit and the gallery space, and then they have the option, once they work and they get a little bit deeper into the project,
Okay.
and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it's actually, we're recommending or seeking board approval for a $25 million budget, but leaving those options in design at this time. And
Yes.
if we find in detailed design we cannot afford them, we will come back to the committee and to the board and let you know where we sit and what
That's
the
right.
cost is,
Yeah.
so we can
Okay.
discuss options at that time.
Right.
Okay.
I forgot about the
No, I-
sticking with the 25 million, yeah. All right. Okay, all in favor. So we have the first and a second. All in favor, 7-0. Sally, did you get that? The first and, okay. And then the science building project at Nevada High. This is, the staff recommendation is board approval of the schematic design, project schedule, and project cost estimate for the Center for the Science Building at Nevada High, and the cost being $13,749,312. Okay, so we have first by trustee Mack.
I'll second.
Second by trustee Scott.
And for clarification, I'm going to vote against it based on, until I have my tour. I don't feel strongly about it, but I
Understandable.
don't, so
Yeah.
you'll get a no vote, but
Okay.
not a strong no vote.
All in favor? Opposed? So we have a 6-1. Okay. All right, and then this is a little bit different. This is approval to develop new construction options for the Performing Arts Center at, let me just read the board approval, development of the new construction options for the Performing Arts Center at San Marin High School, and direct staff to bring back the schematic design for this option at a future board meeting in May of 2018.
I so
I'll
move.
move.
Okay. Trustee Millerick as a first and trustee Scott as a second. All in favor? 7-0. All right, that was a good discussion, and we got through it. Those are important. Those are three of our huge projects. So thank you, board members. We have one more item.
Not done with me yet.
Nope, Mike is still up. This is to begin public bidding for the stadium lights at San Marin High School and the public address system at San Marin High School. Yeah, and before we thank you, Linda and Emily, and I'm sorry, Caroline, yes, I apologize. And John, thank you very much for being here and speaking up. And my mic's left already, Mike Casper, so we appreciate you being here. And Peter and Hector and Kevin. Okay, did I hit everybody?
Yes, you did. Thank you, President Butler. So, last item for me tonight, seeking approval to begin public bidding for the stadium lights and the public address system projects at San Marin High School. And also, as we seek this approval, let you know that we have a request for a slight budget increase. Back in May, as you know, you certified the EIR for the stadium lights and public address system, and that sort of served as a schematic design at that point. We moved forward with that approval for, you approved $1,165,000 for the lights, and you approved a separate that was out of Fund 21, and $245,000 for the public address system out of Fund 22. Done back in May, and as we move forward through detailed design with Carducci and Associates, we are complete with design and ready to go out to bid. However, we had some increases that popped up. We needed an additional $173,000 in the lights project because of a few items. The Musco light package actually went up in cost while we were doing the design. And since they're kind of the one source of these great lights, we have that bill. And also, there were some assumptions of existing conduit that was in the ground from previous project that we found was not quite there. So there's an additional about 1,200 linear feet of conduit that needs to be laid. And with the labor cut and fill associated with that, that pretty much makes up the additional $173,000 we need on the light side. On the public address system side, we need an additional $95,000. Again, the cost of speaker poles, much like the light package, went up. And the same issue with the conduit runs. We thought some were there that we found were not, and we need to do some additional runs. So what we are asking for is out of Fund 21 approval to go out to bid with a new project estimate of $1,338,129 out of, again, Fund 21. Just to note, $600,000, that's from donations, matching donations from the school. And then for the public address system, looking for approval for $340,000 total out of Fund 22. And happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions, anybody? Trustee Nell.
I am curious as to the status of this donation. Has there been any official escrow account, or how we dealing with that?
So we are finalizing agreement with the boosters. The boosters are not the only donors towards this project. The Donner Foundation has came forward, has already donated $50,000 towards this project, and we just got another award of $19,000 that I will be bringing to the board around this project. As well as Greystone West has graciously agreed to donate their services as part of this, which will reduce the overall cost in that. They are over, the boosters and these other donations are already at about 80% of the total that are required. And at the time that we go out to accept bids, I will also bring an agreement for the board and the boosters, which guarantees the money that will be in an escrow account, as well as the commitment for the final amounts of that money. I am confident, given the fact that they are already at 80%, and we're it'll be in the fall before it's done, that they will be able to make their commitment. But yes, I will bring a contract with that, so that we have confidence that the $600,000 that's coming in their portion of that project will be available.
With that, I'm prepared to move on the recommendation.
Okay, so we have a first by Trustee Nell. Any further questions? Trustee Mack.
Just a quick question. On the sound system, where do we stand with doing a similar thing across town at Novato? Because obviously the sound from that system just blasts in that valley. And looking into.
They've already got speakers in both bleachers at Novato High.
No, they only have the big ones on the home side, so they blast to neighbors. Cool. So what I'm getting at is the localized speakers that you're going to put on both sides. Get the localized speakers at least on the home side of Novato High.
I know. We definitely are looking into it. We don't have a planned project at this point.
I mean, just to be clear, there's just 3 big speakers right now, and they sit on the very top, and they blast across the valley. I hear neighbors complain about them all the time. They can hear my voice sometimes.
Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. They are.
You're talking too loudly.
I did set myself up.
You walked right into that one.
We needed some comedy. Some levity. But anyway, if you could please look into that. Because,
yes.
I mean, I think the visitor side is just fine. The localized speakers are great, but we need localized speakers on the home side in Novato High. Because right now, sometimes it's just crazy there.
Will do.
Okay. Anybody else? We need a second. Yes. Okay. Second by trustee Mack. Okay. So we have a first by trustee Nell, a second by trustee Mack. This is approval. But approval increase budget and authorize staff to begin public bidding for the stadium light and PA system projects at San Marin High School. All in favor? 7-0. Okay. All right. That concludes our meeting.
Thank you very much for your time and patience
And
tonight.
our next regular board meeting is May 8th. And again, we're unsure on the closed session, so we'll let you know as soon as we finalize that.